Hey guys, tonight we are time-minus traveling. Not to a battlefield, not to a grand coronation, but to something far more treacherous, a medieval castle party. Specifically, we're diving headfirst into the terribly complicated, frankly bizarre world of courtly love. Imagine a rule book for romance written by lawyers, poets, and your most dramatic aunt. All at once, you're about to become a young, aspiring noble, dropped into this high-stakes social scene where a misplaced glance could be more dangerous than a stray arrow. You'll find that surviving the feast is harder than surviving a siege. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And for our little ritual, let me know in the comments what city you're listening from and what time it is for you. It's always nice to know where we're all journeying from tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The air inside the great hall is thick. It's a humid, medieval cocktail of roasting meat, spilled wine, damp wool, and the faint, sweet smell of beeswax from hundreds of candles. The noise is a constant, cheerful roar. Men with flushed faces are laughing too loudly, banging their fists on the long wooden tables, while minstrels in a far corner try their best to be heard over the din, strumming lutes and piping on flutes. You're standing near the entrance, feeling entirely out of place. Your new velvet doublet feels stiffened a little too warm, and you keep shifting your weight, unsure of what to do with your hands. This is your first time at a castle of this stature. Your father, a minor lord with more land than coin, sent you here to make connections, which is a polite way of saying try not to embarrass the family name and maybe find a way to be useful. Right now, your primary goal is to simply navigate from the doorway to a less conspicuous spot without tripping over a sleeping hound or a discarded chicken bone. You take a deep breath and start walking, trying to look like you belong. You see knights, their armor polished and gleaming in the candlelight, boasting of their exploits. You see ladies, clustered together, their elaborate head-minus dresses like a garden of strange, colorful flowers. Their laughter is lighter, more musical than the men's, but it seems to carry just as far. You notice they communicate in a language of their own, a flick of a wrist, a subtle tilt of the head, the way they hold their silk fans. It's a silent, coded conversation happening right under the nose of all this masculine bravado. You finally find an empty space on a bench, squeezing in between a grizzled old knight who smells faintly of horse and a young squire who looks just as nervous as you feel. You grab a goblet of watered-down wine and pretend to be fascinated by the tapestry hanging on the stone wall opposite you. It depicts a heroic hunting scene, but you're not really seeing it. You're scanning the room, trying to understand the invisible currents of power and influence. Who is talking to whom? Who is pointedly not talking to whom? This is where you first learn the fundamental rule of this place: nothing is ever what it seems. A friendly conversation could be a political negotiation. A shared joke could be a veiled threat. And romance, well, you thought you knew what romance was. It was about finding a suitable bride from a good family, securing a dowry, and producing heirs. Simple, practical, dear. However, you start to sense it's something else entirely. You see a knight staring not at his wife, but at another man's wife, a lady of high station who is gracefully pretending not to notice his gaze. But she does. You see it in the slightest blush on her cheek, the way she slows the flutter of her fan for just a second. It's a game, and it's being played by everyone. Historians still argue about whether courtly love was a genuine emotional experience or just a literary trope, a kind of social performance art for the bored aristocracy. Was it a real code of conduct, or just a collection of pretty poems and songs? As you sit there, nursing your wine, you get the distinct impression that it's somehow both at the same time. And you realize you don't know a single one of the rules. For a fleeting moment, you miss the straightforward simplicity of mucking out a stable. It's a funny little tidbit of history that the concept of being in love as a noble pursuit was largely popularized by Eleanor of Aquitaine and her daughter Marie de Champagne in the 12th century. They essentially ran a kind of love university at their courts, turning romance into a sophisticated, hurtful, and terribly complicated discipline. You, my friend, have just walked into the final exam without ever having attended a class. You take another sip of wine, the sweet, watery liquid doing little to calm your nerves. Your eyes drift from the tapestry, over the heads of the crowded hall, towards the high table. It's set on a raised dais, a clear physical representation of the hierarchy you're at the bottom of. There sits the lord of this castle, your host, the H.E.S. abroad, bearded man in his 40s, his tunic rich, dark blue, H.E.S. listening to a knight beside him, nodding occasionally, a look of bored authority on his face. And next to him is his wife, the lady of the castle. And this is when it happens. It's not a conscious decision to look at her, not really. Your gaze simply lands on her as part of its aimless wandering. And then it just stops. She is, by any definition, beautiful. But it's not the bright, rosy-cheeked beauty of the younger girls you've seen. Hers is a beauty of composure, of quiet intelligence. Her blonde hair is intricately braided and coiled under a delicate, translucent veil, while everyone else is loud. She is a pool of stillness, just smiling faintly at something one of her ladies waiting is whispering to her. But the smile doesn't quite reach her eyes. There's a touch of melancholy there, a hint of thoughtfulness that seems out of place in this boisterous hall. You are so engrossed in this silent observation that you don't realize you're staring. Not until she turns her head, ever so slightly, and her eyes meet yours across the smoky expanse. It's only for a second, maybe two, but the entire clamor of the hall, the music, the laughter, the shouting, it all just vanishes. There's only the sudden, sharp, terrifying connection of your gaze meeting hers. Her eyes are a cool, clear blue, and in that brief moment, you feel as if she sees right through you, the borrowed clothes, the nervous posture, the desperate hope that you won't make a fool of yourself. This is the moment poets of the age wrote about. A truly strange and specific medieval belief was that love was a physical phenomenon that literally entered the body through the eyes. They believed that beams of light, carrying the image of the beloved, shot from her eyes directly into yours, traveling down into your heart like a tiny, invisible arrow. It sounds ridiculous, like something from a fairy tale, but as you sit there, frozen on your bench, you could almost swear you felt it. A physical jolt, a sudden, sharp intake of breath. Your heart gives a painful lurch against your ribs. She is the first to break the gaze. With an unhurried, regal grace, she turns her head back to her attendant, her expression unchanged. There is no sign that anything has happened. No blush, no frown, no flicker of surprise. It's as if it never occurred, but you know it did, and because she is so composed, your own reaction feels clumsy and loud. You look away so quickly you almost drench your neck, staring down into your now empty goblet as if it holds the secrets of the universe. Your face is hot. You're certain that every single person in the hall saw that exchange and is now staring at you, whispering about your audacity. You sneak a glance. No one is looking. The grizzled knight next to you is now snoring softly, and the squire is trying to catch the eye of a serving girl. The world has not, in fact, stopped turning, but yours has. Now her presence is no longer just a feature of the room. It is the center of it. You are acutely aware of her husband sitting beside her, a man whose lands you are standing on, whose food you have eaten, and who could have you thrown in a dungeon or worse on a whim. This isn't just a pretty lady. This is the Lord's wife. The ultimate look but do not touch personify. The lady of a great household was not merely a decorative object. She was a powerhouse. She managed the castle's logistics, oversaw supplies, directed staff, and was often the acting ruler when her husband was away at war or court. Her favor could make a young man's career, and her displeasure could ruin it. Historians still debate the true nature of the lady's role in the theater of courtly love. Was she a passive muse, an idealized object for knights to project their ambitions onto? Or was she an active participant, A savvy political operator who used the admiration of young men to build her own sphere of influence within the patriarchal structure of the court. Looking at her now, so serene and unreadable, you realize you have absolutely no way of knowing. All you know is that you are supposed to be making connections here, and you have, in the span of a single, silent glance, made the most dangerous and exhilarating connection possible. The rest of the feast passes in a blur. You don't dare look towards the high table again. Yet, you are aware of her every imagined movement. You feel the heat of that momentary gaze imprinted on your mind. The wine now tastes like ash, and the food, which you deep in so looking forward to, sits heavy and tasteless in your stomach. Your mission to make connections has been completely derailed by a single, soilen, to minus second interaction. Your mind is a frantic mess, replaying that moment over and over. Did she look at you with disdain, curiosity, or in this thought makes your heart do another painful flip? Was it a flicker of interest? You're pretty sure it was disdain. Utter, complete disdain for your peasant minus like staring. Days turn into a week. You settle into the rhythm of castle life, a monotonous routine of assisting in the stables, running errands for the steward, and trying your best to be both visible and invisible at the same time. But the image of the lady is a constant presence in your thoughts. You learn her name Isabel. You learn her routine. You see her walking in the gardens with her ladies, a distant, elegant figure. You see her in the chapel, her head bowed in prayer. Each time, you keep a respectful distance, your head down, your heart thumping a nervous rhythm against your ribs. You realize you can't go on like this. This silent, secret obsession is pointless. You need to know if that glance meant anything at all. But hell, you can't just walk up to her. That would be social suicide, an unthinkable breach of every protocol that governs this place. You need a way to signal your interest that is both undeniable to her and deniable to everyone else. You need to learn the castle's secret language. Your teacher comes in the unlikely form of a slightly older squire named Jean-Luc, the same one who was sitting beside you at the feast. He has been at this castle for a year and has mastered the art of survival. One afternoon, while mending a saddle strap, you cautiously ask him how a man is supposed to. Well, you stammer, not quite knowing how to phrase it. How does one show respect for a lady? Jean-Luc gives you a knowing, pitying smile. You mean the Lady Isabel, he says, not as a question, but as a statement. Your face flushes, and you start to deny it. But he just waves a hand. Everyone tries. Most fail. He then proceeds to give you your first lesson in the art of courtly communication. It's all about plausible deniability. It starts with the eyes. He explains. You already failed that part. You stared like a hungry wolf. You're supposed to glance, then look away, as if you're ashamed of your own audacity. You let her catch you looking, but only for a moment. He then moves on to the props. A glove, he says, picking one up. If you see her drop a glove and you rush to pick it up, that's just common courtesy. But if you pick it up, hold it for a fraction of a second too long before returning it. Maybe brush your fingers against hers. That's a signal. It's a language of minutiae, of tiny gestures magnified in significance. Then there's the fan, the lady's primary to love communication. Jean-Luc admits he doesn't know all the codes. They seem to change with the seasons, but he knows the basics. If an held to the lips means be quiet. We're being watched. If an opened unclosed rapidly means I am interested. Tapping a closed fan against her cheek could mean yes or it could mean no, depending on the context. It's hopelessly confusing. Here's a fascinatedly weird little fact: the language of the fan, orphanology, is often associated with the 18th and 19th centuries, but the use of objects for subtle flirtation was already well minus established in the medieval period. Handkerchiefs, gloves, small lapel pins. Even the color of one's sleeves could be imbued with meaning. It was a silent vocabulary born from a lack of privacy. When you're surrounded by people 24/7, you have to get creative. Armed with this confusing, half-minus baked knowledge, You decide to try. A few days later, you see her walking across the inner bailey. This is your chance. You position yourself in her path, pretending to be examining the sharpening of a lance. As she passes, you do as Jean minus Luke instructed. You lift your eyes, meet her gaze for a single, fleeting second, and then immediately look down at the ground, as if overwhelmed with humility. You wait, your heart in your throat. You feel her slow her pace. You risk a tiny, upward glance from under your eyelashes. She is looking at you. She isn't smiling, nor is she frowning. Her expression is, as always, perfectly neutral, but she lifts her hand and, with a slow, deliberate motion, she taps her chin with her finger. What on earth does that mean? Is it a signal? High dismissal? Is she just scratching an itch? You have absolutely no idea. You stand there, frozen, long after she has passed and disappeared into the keep. That single, simple gesture has thrown you into a state of utter confusion. Academic circles are still divided on just how formalized these signals were. Did a tap on the chin have a universally understood meaning within a specific court, like a form of sign language? Or was it more intuitive and personal, a meaning constructed between two individuals that no one else could decipher? You, standing dumbfounded in the middle of the courtyard, can certainly attest to the ambiguity. You have sent a signal and received one in return. The only problem is, you have no idea what either of you just said. The chin minus step gesture haunts you. For days, you turn it over and over in your mind, analyzing it from every angle. Was it a sign of contemplation? A subtle acknowledgement? A coded message to be more discreet? Or was she, as you morbidly suspect, simply pointing out a bit of porridge you demissed on your chin from breakfast? The ambiguity is maddening. Jean minus Luke is no help. The chin? Never heard that one. He says with a shrug. Maybe it means you should grow a beard. Or shave. Good luck. You realize that gazing and gesturing isn't enough. It's too vague, too easily misinterpreted. You need to escalate, to make a clearer statement of your devotion. According to the unwritten rules of courtly love, the next logical step is poetry. This is a horrifying prospect. You are the son of a minor lord. You know how to track a deer, how to wield a sword, how to tell when a horse is going lame. Your experience with a quill and ink is limited to signing your name, which you can do, but not with any particular flair. The idea of composing verses about your feelings fills you with a cold dread that's worse than any pre-minus battle jitters. But it must be done. This is the proof of worthiness stage. A true courtly lover wasn't just a brute in armor. He had to be sensitive, articulate, and artistic. He had to be able to express his sublime suffering and adoration in rhyming couplets. So, you commit to the task. You trade a small silver coin you'd been saving for a few sheets of precious parchment and a small pot of ink from a traveling merchant. For the next several nights, after the castle has fallen into a snoring slumber, you sit by the light of a single, sputtering tallow candle in the cramped corner of the barracks you share with a dozen other men. The parchment, a creamy, expensive surface, seems to mock you. What can you possibly write? You start with the basics. Her eyes, they are blue, like the sky. No, just simple. Like the sea. Better, but a bit dramatic. Like sapphires. Every other poet uses sapphires. You cross it out, smearing the ink. Hers, it's blonde. Like the sun. Again, overdone. Like spun gold. A classic. But is it your classic? You chew on the end of your quill, a taste of bitter feather and ink filling your mouth. You try to describe the feeling you had when you first saw her, the way your heart stopped. You write, "My heart. It did stop in my chest when I saw you. I was put to the test. It's terrible. It sounds like a tavern song sung by a drunkard." You crumple the parchment, a costly and frustrating gesture. This struggle highlights a funny little aspect of medieval life. While we imagine these grand, romantic poets, the reality for many was that literacy itself was still a specialized skill. For a nobleman, being able to compose a passable poem was a sign of a refined education in the sensitive soul. It was a status symbol, like owning a well-bred hog. The ability to express complex emotions in a structured form was considered a hallmark of a superior man. After a week of sleepless nights and a small mountain of crumpled, ink-smeared failures, you finally produce something that is not completely embarrassing. It's for short stanzas. It compares her to a distant, unobtainable star. It mentions your own unworthiness in excruciating detail. It rhymes A minus B minus B minus B, which you learned from listening to the minstrels. It is, you have to admit, incredibly generic. There's nothing in it that couldn't apply to any high-born lady in any castle in Christendom. But it is yours. You painstakingly copy it onto a fresh sheet of parchment in your best, wobbly handwriting. Now comes the second challenge: how to deliver it. You can't just hand it to her. It has to be discovered. This is part of the game, the performance of secrecy. You could try to leave it in a book in the chapel, hoping she'll find it. You could try to bribe a servant, but that's risky. Then you get an idea. You know she often walks her greyhound in the walled garden in the late afternoon. The garden has a small stone bench near a rose trellis. You wait for your moment. When you know she is elsewhere, you slip into the garden, your heart pounding. You fold the small piece of parchment, tuck it carefully into the thick leaves of the rose bush, right next to the bench, positioned so it might look like it simply fell there by accident. A very, very deliberate accident. For the rest of the day, you are a wreck. Did she find it? Did someone else find it? Did a gust of wind blow it away? Did a gardener sweep it up with the dead leaves? The uncertainty is a physical weight. Historians still puzzle over the practical delivery of these romantic artifacts. Did lovers really use such elaborate, movie-like methods? Or was the exchange more direct, happening through trusted intermediaries? The literature of the time is filled with these secret drop scenes, but whether that reflects reality or is simply a dramatic convention is, like so much of courtly love, a matter of ongoing debate. For you, hiding your clumsy poem in a rose bush, it feels very, very real. You've taken a huge risk, moving beyond glances and into the realm of tangible evidence. Now, all you can do is wait and see if your star chooses to shine on you, or if you just wasted a good piece of parchment. The waiting is a unique form of torment. Every time you see her from a distance, your stomach clenches. You scrutinize her for any sign, any hint that she found your poem. Does she look at you longer than she used to? Is that a thoughtful expression on her face? Or is she just thinking about the castle's dwindling flower supply? You are driving yourself mad with speculation. You've received no further chin-taps, no mysterious fan flutters, nothing. Just a profound and terrifying silence. Just as you're beginning to resign yourself to the idea that your poetic masterpiece is currently decomposing in a compost heap, news ripples through the castle. The Lord is hosting a tournament. It's not a grand, state affair, but a smaller journey to celebrate his saint's day. There will be jousting, the melee, and archery for the knights and squires. It's a chance to win glory and prize money. For you, it's a chance to do something you're actually good at. This is the next, and perhaps most public, stage of the courtly love ritual. Your poem was a private declaration of your sensitive soul. The tournament is a public declaration of your masculine prowess. The two were considered sides of the same coin. A perfect knight was supposed to be as skilled with a lance as he was with a lute. You, of course, are terrible with a lute, but you can ride. You've been on a horse since you were old enough to walk. Then you've trained in arms your whole life. This is your arena. You immediately sign up for the joust and the melee. It's a bold move for a newcomer with no reputation, but you're refueled by a desperate need to get her attention in a way that doesn't involve rhyming heart with a part. The days leading up to the tournament are a flurry of preparation. You spend hours in the tilt yard, practicing your riding, your aim, your balance. You borrow a suit of armor that doesn't quite fit. The shoulder plates chafe, and the helmet pinches, but it's better than nothing. You spend your last few coins on a new leather strap for your shield. G-Luke watches you train with a mixture of admiration and concern. You're actually good at this, he says, surprised. Just try not to get yourself killed. It's a bad look for a suitor. The day of the tournament arrives. The air is crisp and festive. Banners of all colors snap in the wind. Spectators fill the wooden stands built along the jousting lanes. Then there, in the central box, sits the Lord and the Lady Isabel. She's wearing a gown of deep green, and a small, jeweled circlet rests on her head. She looks impossibly regal and distant. This is where a famous tradition comes into play: the knight fighting for his lady's favor. Before the joust, the participating knights would ride before the stands and dedicate their performance to a chosen lady. She would then bestow upon them a favor, a small token, like a scarf, a ribbon, or a sleeve, which the knight would then attach to his helmet or lance. It was a public declaration of his devotion. You watch as the other, more established knights present themselves. One kneels before the Lord's cousin. Another receives a silk ribbon from a young, unmarried baroness. You see their husbands and fathers looking on, beaming with pride. It's all part of the performance. A public display of chivalry, but your situation is different. You can't dedicate your joust to the Lady Isabel. That would be a direct, public challenge to her husband, an act of sheer insanity. You would be confessing your feelings in front of the entire court. So you ride forward with the other squires, your head bowed, your lance held plainly. You have no favor to tie to it. You feel a pang of disappointment. This whole endeavor was for her, yet you cannot even acknowledge it. As you turn your horse, ready to take your place at the end of the tilting lane, you glance up at the box one last time. She is looking down, seemingly discussing something with her lady minus in minus waiting. But her attendant, a sharp minus-eyed woman you've noticed before, catches your eye. The attendant gives a barely perceptible nod towards a corner of the lady's box. There, draped over the railing as if forgotten, is a small, plain, white linen handkerchief. It's an incredibly risky move. Is it for you? Is it just a dropped handkerchief? This is where a bizarre, almost comical, aspect of courtly love comes in. A popular trope was for the lady to accidentally drop her favor, allowing her secret admirer to retrieve it without her having to publicly acknowledge him. Historians still debate whether these accidents were real or just a convenient literary device to move the plot along. From your perspective, it feels terrifyingly real. You have a split second to decide. To ignore it is safe. To take it is to accept a secret path. Fueled by a surge of adrenaline, you guide your horse in a tight, seemingly casual circle, bringing you close to the stands. Leaning down from your saddle, as if adjusting the stirrup, your hand darts up and snatches the handkerchief. You tuck it swiftly inside your gauntlet, your heart hammering against your ribs. You don't look up. You just ride to your starting position. The small square of soft linen is secret fire against your skin. You have her favor. No, you have to prove you're worthy of it. The world narrows to the length of the tilting lane. At the far end, your opponent, a burly knight with a fearsome minus-looking boar crest on his helmet, settles his arm lance. The crowd, the banners, the colorful tents, it all fades into a muted background hum. The only thing that feels real is the borrowed armor creaking around you, the solid weight of the lance in your hand, and the secret warmth of the handkerchief tucked into your gauntlet. You are no longer just a nameless squire trying to make an impression. You are a champion, fighting for a hidden cause. The trumpet sounds, the sharp, brazen cry. You spur your horse. The ground trembles as the two of you thunder towards each other. It's a moment of pure, violent focus. You see the tip of his lance aiming for your shield. You adjust your own, aiming for the solid center of his. The impact is a deafening crash of wood and steel. Your lance splinters, the shock of it jarring your entire arm. But you hold your seat. His lance glances off your shield, sending a painful vibration through your body, but doing no real harm. You thunder past each other. The crowd roars. It's a draw, but you survived your first pass. You ride back to the start, your heart soaring. You did it. You didn't fall. The squire hands you a new lance. As you take it, you steal a glance towards the high stand. You can't make out her expression, but she is watching. That's all the encouragement you need. The tournament continues. You win your next joust, shattering your lance squarely against your opponent's shield and making him wobble in his saddle. You feel a surge of confidence you've never known before. This is something you understand. This is a language of force and skill, far more straightforward than poetry and secret glances. In the melee, the chaotic, Mach-minus battle that follows the jousts you fight with a controlled fury, your borrowed sword feeling like an extension of your own arm. You don't win, not outright, but you aren't unhorsed, and you acquit yourself with honor, earning a few approving nods from the older knights. By the end of the day, you are exhausted, bruised, and filthier than you've ever been, but you are also filled with a profound sense of accomplishment. You have proven your worth in the most public way possible. That evening, at the celebratory feast, the atmosphere is different. A few knights clap you on the back. The Lord himself gives you a brief, approving nod as he awards you a small purse of coins for your performance in the jousts. You are no longer invisible, but your true prize is the knowledge of that handkerchief, still tucked safely inside your tunic. Now, a new problem arises. You held her favor. You fought in her honor. What's next? You have to give a gift in return. This was a crucial and tricky part of the courtship. The gift couldn't be a simple transaction. It had to be thoughtful, personal, and, most importantly, discreet. You couldn't give her a jewel or a fine gown. That was the purview of her husband. Such a gift would be an insult to him and a public scandal. The art of courtly gift minus giving was a minefield of etiquette. A popular gift from a knight to his lady was something he had won or acquired through his own prowess. For example, a particularly beautiful feather from a bird he'd hunted, or even the finely crafted helmet of a rival HED defeated a bit morbid. But it happened. The gift had to say, "I am thinking of you, and I am accomplished." You don't have a defeated rival's helmet to offer, but you do have the purse of coins you won. It feels crass to offer her money, but you could use it to acquire something. But what? A rare flower? A book of poetry written by someone else? Thankfully, you spend 2 days agonizing over it. Then, you remember something. In the market that set up outside the castle for the tournament, you saw a merchant selling small, carved wooden birds. They were simple, made of pale linden wood, but exquisitely detailed. One in particular, a tiny, perfect falcon with its wings slightly spread, had caught your eye. A falcon was a noble bird, a symbol of keen sight, freedom, and controlled power. It felt right. It was beautiful but not ostentatious. It was valuable for its artistry, not its material. You purchased the little bird, wrapping it carefully in a piece of clean linen. Now you face the same dilemma as with the poem delivery. Leaving it in the rose garden feels repetitive. You need a new plan. Her lady minus and minus waiting, the one with the sharp eyes, seems to be your only possible ally. But approaching her is a risk in itself. Is she a loyal confidant, or is she a spy for the Lord? Here's a curious little detail from history. The lady minus and minus waiting, or damsel, plays a huge role in courtly love literature. She is the go minus between, the messenger, the facilitator. Whether this reflects their real minus life role is, once again, a subject of debate for historians. Were these young women acting out of loyalty to their lady, or were they playing their own games of power and influence, using the secrets they carried as a form of currency? You decide to take the chance. You see the attendant, whose name you've learned is Alice, leaving the chapel alone. With your heart pounding, you approach her. You don't say a word about the Lady Isabel. You simply bow, present her with the small, wrapped object, and say, "For your kindness, I hope this finds its way to a place where it will be appreciated." It's a cryptic, roundabout phrase, but it's the best you can do. Alice looks at the package. then up at you. Her expression is unreadable. She simply takes it, gives a slight, almost imperceptible nod, and walks away, leaving you standing there, once again adrift in a sea of uncertainty. You have sent your gift. The next move is hers. Days pass, and the silence returns, thicker and more unnerving than before. You see allies in the halls, but she gives no sign that she even remembers your brief, cryptic exchange. You start to panic. Did you misread her entirely? Was she offended by your presumption? Did she throw your little wooden falcon into the nearest fire? Your public success at the tournament begins to feel hollow, overshadowed by your private failure in this delicate, infuriating game. You are mired in this state of anxious gloom when Jean-Luc finds you polishing a helmet with far more vigor than necessary. You look like a kicked dog, he observes, not unkindly, still mooning over the Lady Isabel. You just grunt in response, rubbing a smudge on the steel. Look, he says, lowering his voice, you're going about this all wrong. You're trying to do everything yourself. The poem, the gift, it's too direct, too risky. You need help. You need an intermediary. This, he explains, is how things are really done. You don't deliver the message yourself. You have someone deliver it for you. This creates a buffer, another layer of plausible deniability. If the message is unwelcome, the lady can simply pretend her attendant misunderstood. No one loses face. The messenger takes the fall. It's a brilliant, if cowardly, system. The problem, of course, is that your only candidate for an intermediary as ally is the very person you think you just alienated. You explain the situation to Jean-Luc, how you gave her the gift directly. He winces. Allies, you went straight to the head of the Praetorian Guard. She's been the lady's confidant for 10 years. She's more loyal than the Lord's own hound and twice as clever. He thinks for a moment. But maybe that was the right move, showing you're bold enough to approach her directly. His words are small comfort. You are convinced you've ruined everything. But then, something changes. The next day, as you're carrying a basket of fresh linens across the courtyard, Allah is suddenly there, walking towards you. Your instinct is to drop your gaze and scurry away, but she stops directly in your path. The air in the solar has been stale, she says, her voice slow and even. She doesn't look at you, but at a point somewhere over your shoulder. My lady finds that the scent of lavender is pleasing. She has asked that fresh lavender be brought from the garden each morning. And then she walks on, leaving you standing there with your basket of laundry, completely bewildered. Lavender. What does lavender have to do with anything? You look over at Jean-Luc, who happens to be nearby, and he gives you a slow, impressed blink. You corner him later by the stables. Lavender? You hiss. What does that mean? Jean-Luc grins. It's not a message, you idiot. It's an instruction. It's a job, he explains. The solar is the lady's private sitting room. It's one of the few places in the castle where she can retreat with her ladies for privacy. By giving you the task of bringing lavender there each morning, Allah is granting you legitimate, sanctioned access to the threshold of her private space. You won't see her not at first, but you will be there. You will be a known presence, your entry noted and approved. It's an invitation into the inner circle, disguised as a chore. This was a common tactic in the intricate social dance of a medieval court. Lovers would often arrange for their beloved to be given a specific, recurring task that brought them into proximity. He might be assigned to read to her, to pour her wine at a private meal, or as in your case, to perform a simple service for her chambers. It was a way of creating opportunities for brief, seemingly accidental encounters. One of the more peculiar and debated aspects of this is the role of the go-between. In epic poems and romances, the intermediary is often a character in their own right, with their own motives. Take Lunchi, from Chrétien de Troyes' wife Aine, the Knight of the Lion, who masterfully orchestrates the entire romance between Yvain and his lady Laudine. Historians are divided on whether these literary figures had real minus life counterparts who were quite so. Machiavellian, was Aloys a simple, loyal friend to her lady, or was she an expert political operative, enjoying the power of pulling the strings? You have no idea, but you're immensely grateful to her either way. The next morning, you go to the garden at dawn. You carefully select the best stalks of lavender, their purple flowers still wet with dew. You bundle them together and, with your heart feeling like it's going to beat its way out of your chest, you walk to the solar. A guard at the door, who has clearly been informed, just nods and lets you pass. You step inside. The room is empty. A fire crackles in the hearth, and a beautiful tapestry, one depicting a lady and a unicorn, hangs on the wall. Her lute rests on a chair. An embroidery frame stands nearby, a half-finished project of gold and silver thread. You can smell her perfume in the air, a faint scent of roses and spice. The room feels incredibly intimate, charged with her presence even in her absence. You quickly find a vase, arrange the lavender, and leave, your cheeks flushed. You do this every morning for a week. You never see her. You never see Aloys. You just deliver the flowers to the empty room. It's a test of your patience, your discretion. You are being watched, evaluated. This isn't a whirlwind romance. It's a job interview. And you, the boy who just wanted to make connections, are now the official, clandestine lavender minus delivery squire for the woman you can't stop thinking about. Your daily ritual of delivering lavender to the empty solar becomes the new anchor of your life. It's a strange, almost monastic duty. The 5 minutes you spend in that quiet, sunlit room are both agonizing and blissful. You breathe in the scent of her. You see the personal items that shape her daily existence, her book of hours left open on a table, her shawl draped over a chair, the little wooden falcon you gave her now sitting on the mantelpiece. The sight of it there sends a jolt of triumph through you every single time. Your gift was received. It was accepted. This new proximity, however, comes at a cost. You are no longer an anonymous face in the crowd. Your performance at the tournament made you noticeable, and your new, privileged task makes you interesting. And in a medieval castle, being interesting is dangerous. You begin to feel the weight of eyes upon you. The court is a closed ecosystem, a small, bored community desperate for entertainment, and the favorite form of entertainment is gossip. It's the castle's invisible currency, traded in hushed whispers in corridors, behind tapestries, and over mending baskets. You, the upstart squire who fought surprisingly well and now has a mysterious reason to be near the ladies' private chambers every morning, are the subject of the season's hottest new rumor. You start to notice it in small ways, to serving girls who fall silent and giggle when you walk past, a knight who gives you a long, appraising look over the rim of his wine cup. Jean-Luc reports the whispers he overhears. They're saying Yuri trying to curry favor with the lady. He tells you one evening. Some say Yuri ambitious. Others say Yuri just a fool. The most dangerous part is that the whispers are formless. No one is accusing you of anything specific, because there's nothing specific to accuse you of. Yuri just there. Yuri delivering flowers. It's your assigned duty. But the implication hangs in the air, thick and cloying. The very discretion that the system of courtly love demands is what makes you look so suspicious. If your intentions were purely professional, why all the secrecy? You are trapped in a paradox of your own making. This is where you learn the true power of reputation in a pre-modern world. Without mass media, a person's reputation was everything. It was built on word of mouth, on rumor, and on the perceptions of a very small group of people. A damaging rumor, even if untrue, could stick to you forever, affecting your prospects for marriage, advancement, and honor. You are learning this lesson the hard way. One afternoon, you have a direct, terrifying encounter with this phenomenon. You are crossing the main hall when the Lord's brother, a sour, minus-faced man named Guy, stops you. He has a reputation for being cruel and enjoying the discomfort of others. You're the flower boy, aren't you? he says, his voice loud enough for several nearby people to hear. You feel your face grow hot. I am tasked with bringing lavender to the solar. My lord, by the lady's command, you keep your voice steady, respectful. Guy smirks. The lady's command. Of course, she must be very fond of lavender. He leans in closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Or perhaps she's fond of the boy who brings it. You should be careful. Some flowers have thorns. He claps you hard on the shoulder and walks away, laughing to himself. The people who overheard the exchange quickly look away, pretending they heard nothing, but the damage is done. A seed of suspicion has been publicly planted by a high-ranking member of the court. This highlights a fascinatedly strange aspect of courtly Lovett's relationship with public opinion. The entire affair was supposed to be a secret between the two lovers and their trusted intermediaries, yet its ultimate purpose was often public. The knight's devotion was meant to inspire him to greater deeds, which were, by their nature, public acts. So the love had to be secret enough to be safe, but visible enough to be motivating. It was an almost impossible line to walk. Historians are still in a lively debate about the audience for courtly love. Was it truly for the lady, or was the lady merely a pretext, and the real audience was the other men at court? Some scholars argue that these elaborate rituals of devotion were a form of male bonding and competition, a way for knights to prove their worthiness and sophistication to each other. The lady was the prize, but the game was played against other men. As you stand there, your shoulders still smarting from Guy's patronizing clap, this cynical interpretation feels uncomfortably plausible. That night, you can barely sleep. The whispers are no longer just whispers. They have a voice, and it sounds like Guy. You realize that this game is far more complex than you ever imagined. It's not just about winning the lady's affection. It's about surviving the court. Every move you make is being watched, judged, and interpreted by a dozen different factions, all with their own agendas. You came here to make connections. And you have, but you're beginning to realize that in a castle, every connection is a thread in a web, and you're not sure if you're the spider or the fly. The stress of the constant scrutiny begins to take a physical toll. The whispers, the pointed looks, the ever-present fear of a misstep, it's like a slow acting poison. You lose your appetite. The food at the communal tables, once a hearty pleasure, now seems coarse and unappealing. You lie awake at night in the stuffy barracks, your mind racing, replaying every conversation, every glance, searching for hidden meanings and potential threats. You feel weary, down to your bones. One morning, you wake up, feeling dizzy and weak. Your head is pounding, and a cold sweat slicks your skin, even though the air is cool. When you try to stand, the room swims violently, and you have to sit back down on your straw pallet, breathing heavily. Jean-Luc takes one look at your pale face and wide eyes and feels your forehead. You're burning up, he says, his usual teasing tone replaced with genuine concern. But you're also clammy. This isn't a normal fever. He helps you lie back down. You need to see the physician. The idea is mortifying. Seeing the castle physician is a last resort, an admission of serious weakness, but you feel so genuinely unwell that you can't protest. Jean-Luc helps you stumble to the small, herb-scented room that serves as the castle's infirmary. The physician is a thin, elderly man with ink-stained fingers and eyes that seem to look right through you. He listens to your heart by placing his ear against your chest. He examines your tongue. He asks you a series of questions about your diet, your sleep, your humors. Medieval medicine was based on the theory of the four humors: blood, gem, yellow bile, and black bile. Illness was believed to be caused by an imbalance of these vital fluids. You answer his questions truthfully. No, you haven't been eating well. No, you haven't been sleeping. You feel anxious and melancholy? The physician hums thoughtfully. Stroking his chin, he asks you if there is anything, or anyone, causing you great emotional distress. You freeze. You can't possibly tell him the truth. You mumble something about being far from home and struggling to adapt to court life. The old man gives you a dry, knowing smile. He doesn't press the issue. After a long, silent moment, he renders his diagnosis. The imbalance in your humors, he explains, has been brought on by an excess of passion. Your blood is overheated by obsessive thoughts, and your black bile, the humor associated with melancholy, is in dangerous abundance. He pronounces you to be suffering from immersive. This is a truly bizarre and fascinating piece of medical history. Love sickness was considered a genuine, diagnosable medical condition. It wasn't just a poetic metaphor. Physicians from ancient Greece through the medieval period wrote extensively about it. They treated it as a serious ailment, a form of melancholia that could, if left unchecked, lead to wasting away, madness, or even death. The symptoms they described: loss of appetite, insomnia, fever, pallor, obsessive thoughts, and a weak pulse match your condition perfectly. The physician's prescription is as strange as the diagnosis. He recommends a bland diet to cool your overheated blood. Think boiled vegetables and weak broth. He suggests listening to calming music, particularly melodies played on the harp, to soothe your agitated spirit. He also advises pleasant conversation with cheerful companions and moderate exercise, like a gentle walk in the garden. And, he adds with another thin smile, it would be highly beneficial to remove the object of your fixation, or, if that was impossible, to attain the object of your desire. It's the most unhelpful medical advice you've ever received. You stumble back to your barracks, your head spinning with both fever and the absurdity of it all. You have an official medical diagnosis for being in love. Word of your illness spreads, as all news does. But this time, the whispers have a different tone. Your sickness lends a strange kind of legitimacy to the rumors. H.E.S., not just an ambitious sycophant. H.E.S., a true sufferer, a victim of his own powerful emotions. In the world of courtly love, suffering was a badge of honor. It was proof of the sincerity and depth of your feelings. A lover who wasn't pale, sleepless, and miserable wasn't really trying. By getting genuinely sick, you have, ironically, scored a major point in the game. Historians are still fascinated by the phenomenon of immersive. Was it a real psychosomatic illness, where intense psychological stress manifested in physical symptoms? Or was it a fashionable disease, a role that young men were expected to perform to show their romantic credentials? The truth is likely a bit of both. The stress was real, but the culture provided a specific, romanticized framework for understanding and expressing that stress. You lie on your pallet for 2 days, sipping the broth. G-Sloop brings you on feeling utterly wretched. On the third morning, there is a soft knock on the barracks door. It's Alice. She doesn't enter the room full of sleeping men, but stands at the threshold. She carries a small clay pot. She beckons G-Sloop over and speaks to him in a low voice. He comes back to your bedside. It's a salve, he whispers, his eyes wide with amazement. From the Lady Isabel. She says it's for your fever. It's made with willow bark and chemelin. He hands you the pot. Its cool touch. You stare at it, dumbfounded. It's the first direct, tangible acknowledgement you've received from her since the handkerchief. It's not a poem or a flower. It's medicine. It's a gesture of care, of concern. It's a message that says, I know, and I don't want you to suffer. Lying there, weak and feverish, it feels more intimate and meaningful than any secret love letter could ever be. Your strange, debilitating illness has unexpectedly opened a new door. The salve works wonders, or perhaps it's the psychological boost of the gesture itself. But within a few days, your fever breaks, the dizziness subsides, and your appetite slowly returns. You are still weak, but you no longer feel like you're at death's door. The small clay pot, now empty, sits by your pallet like a holy relic. You are back on your feet, and the dynamics of the court seem to have shifted subtly while you were ill. Your bout of love sickness has solidified your reputation. You are no longer just the flower boy. You are the suffering squire. It's a much more romantic title, and it earns you a measure of grudging respect. The whispers haven't stopped, but they are now tinged with a certain dramatic appreciation rather than pure suspicion. You have successfully performed one of the most important chapters in the courtly love narrative, the demonstration of sincere suffering. One afternoon, as you're retaking one of the physician's prescribed gentle walks in the garden, you see a group of high-born ladies, including the Lady Isabel, gathered in a sunny arbor. They are not embroidering or singing. They seem to be engaged in a serious and animated discussion. Alice is there, standing just behind her lady's shoulder. As you draw nearer, trying to be inconspicuous, you see Alice catch your eye and give a very slight, almost imperceptible nod. It's not a dismissal. It feels like an invitation to approach. Hesitantly, you walk towards the group. As you get closer, you realize they are holding a kind of formal debate. The Lord's cousin, a formidable older woman named Eleanor, is acting as a judge. This, you realize with a jolt, is a court of love. These were one of the most curious and debated institutions of the high medieval period, allegedly popularized in the courts of Eleanor of Aquitaine and her daughter Marie de Champagne. These were gatherings where ladies would preside over disputes related to love and chivalry. They would hear cases, listen to arguments, and then issue a judgment based on the complex rules of courtly love. The case they are debating today is a classic dilemma. A knight is devoted to his lady. The lady, to test his obedience, commands him to publicly announce that he is in love with another, less deserving woman. The question before the court is, should the knight obey his lady's command, thus proving his absolute loyalty but betraying the truth of his love, or should he refuse, thus disobeying her but remaining true to his heart? You stand at a respectful distance, listening. The arguments are surprisingly sophisticated. One lady argues for absolute obedience. The lover's will, she insists, must be completely subsumed by the will of his lady. Another argues that love's highest law is truth, and to publicly declare a false love would be a sin against the very spirit of romance. This is your chance. Andreas's nod was a signal. You are being given an opportunity to speak, to demonstrate not just your brawn or your suffering, but your intellect. Your heart hammers in your chest. This is more terrifying than the joust. Summoning all your courage, you clear your throat. My ladies, you say, your voice a little shaky. May a humble squire offer a thought? All eyes turn to you. Lady Eleanor raises an eyebrow. Intrigue. Proceed, she says. You take a deep breath. It seems to me, you begin, choosing your words carefully, that the knight should obey. His obedience proves his love is for her alone, for he is willing to sacrifice his own public honor for her sake. The world may think he loves another, but he and his lady will share the secret knowledge of his true devotion. His public lie becomes their private truth. You finish, your face flushed, certain you've made a complete fool of yourself. The ladies are silent for a moment, considering your words. Then, the Lady Isabel speaks for the first time. Her voice is clear and calm as you remembered it. The squire's logic is sound, she says, not looking at you, but at Lady Eleanor. True service requires sacrifice. A love that is not tested by sacrifice is no love at all. A murmur of agreement goes through the group. Lady Ellie? Honora nods slowly. A wise and subtle point. The judgment of this court is that the knight must obey. She then looks directly at you, a flicker of genuine approval in her eyes. You have a fine mind for these matters, squire. You bow, mumbling your thanks, and retreat before you can say something stupid. You feel dizzy again, but this time it's from pure exhilaration. She spoke, she heard you, and she agreed with you. You have successfully navigated another crucial test. The historical reality of these courts of love is a huge point of contention among scholars. The primary source describing them comes from a book called The Art of Courtly Love by a 12th century cleric named Andreas Capellanus, who claimed to be writing for Marie de Champagne. His book reads like a bizarre legal textbook. outlining rules and judgments from these courts. The big question is, was Capellanus documenting a real social practice, or was he writing a clever, satirical parody of legal and theological texts? Was it a real thing, or was it an elaborate literary joke? There is no definitive evidence outside of his text that these formal courts ever actually happened. It's possible they were more like informal parlor games or literary debates, rather than actual tribunals issuing binding judgments. But as you walk away from the arbor, your head spinning with your success, the court you just witnessed felt very real indeed. You didn't just win a debate. You feel like you won a case, and the judge who mattered most ruled in your favor. Your performance at the Court of Love seems to have been a turning point. You have proven yourself to be more than just a lovesick boy or a competent jouster. You have shown yourself to be a man of thought and sensibility, someone who understands the nuanced philosophy of this strange game. The air around you changes. The suspicious whispers die down, replaced by a kind of grudging admiration. You have, against all odds, become a legitimate player. And with this new status comes a new, terrifying opportunity. A few days after the debate, Alice finds you as you are leaving the stables. This time, there are no cryptic instructions about flowers. Her message is direct, though still delivered in a hushed, discreet tone. My lady will be taking the air in the yew maze after the midday meal, she says. She finds the scent of the boxwood. Coming. She pauses, her eyes meeting yours with pointed significance. The head gardener has been complaining about a broken latch on the small gate at the maze's western edge. It needs to be inspected. She walks away without another word. The message is as clear as a trumpet call. It's not an instruction. It's a summons, a pre-minus arranged, plausibly minus deniable meeting. Eleanor, your blood runs cold, then hot. This is it. This is what all the glances, the poems, the jousting, and the suffering have been leading up to. A chance to actually speak with her, away from the prying eyes and listening ears of the court. The yew maze, a popular feature in medieval gardens, is the perfect location. Its high, thick green walls create a labyrinth of private, secluded corridors. It's a place designed for secrets. You spend the rest of the morning in a state of barely controlled panic. What will you say? How should you act? Do you address her formally as my lady? Or is that too cold? Do you dare speak of your feelings? Or is that too forward? You practice lines in your head, discarding each one as either too clumsy or too presumptuous. You change your tunic 3 times, trying to find the one with the fewest wine stains. After the midday meal, you make your way towards the gardens, your heart a frantic drum against your ribs. You skirt the main entrance to the maze, heading for the small, seldom minus used western gate. Just as Allah is instructed, sure enough, the iron latch is loose, hanging from a single screw, a perfect, pre-minus arranged excuse for your presence. You take out a small knife and pretend to be examining it, your ears straining for the sound of her approach. A few minutes later, you hear the soft rustle of a dress on the gravel path. You turn, and she is there. She is alone, for the first time. She is not surrounded by her ladies or sitting at a high table. She is just a woman, standing a few feet away from you, the sunlight filtering through the leaves and de-appling her face. She is even more beautiful up close. Squire, she says, her voice calm and even. Allah has told me the gate was in need of repair. Your carefully rehearsed lines evaporate from your mind. Yes, my lady, you manage to choke out. The latch is loose. It needs a firmer screw. You feel like the world's biggest fool. A firmer screw? That's the best you could come up with. She gives a small, almost imperceptible smile. It's the first time you've seen her smile directed at you, and it endues you completely. I see, she says. Well, I trust you will see to it. An awkward silence hangs between you. This is the moment. You have to say something, anything, to keep the conversation going. My lady, you start, your voice gaining a little strength. This of, your gift, It was a great kindness. I am recovered. Thanks to you. I am pleased to hear it, she replies, her gaze steady. It is not my wish to see any member of this household suffer needlessly. The phrasing is perfect. It's a personal sentiment couched in the formal language of her duties as lady of the castle. She is acknowledging your suffering while maintaining a proper distance. Here's a curious detail about these secret meetings. Medieval gardens were often deliberately designed to facilitate them. Features like mazes, hidden grottos, and secret gardens, a smaller, enclosed garden within a larger one, were not just for horticultural beauty. They were architectural acknowledgments of the need for privacy in a world that had very little of it. They were stages, built for the drama of courtly life. You walk together, minus by minus side but no touching, down one of the green corridors of the maze. The high walls muffle the sounds of the castle, creating a bubble of intense, quiet intimacy. You talk, but not of love. Not directly. You talk about the books you've read. She asks about your home, your family. You tell her about your father's lands, the forests you grew up in. She tells you about the convent where she was educated, the long hours spent learning Latin and music. It's a conversation of discovery. You are no longer just an icon of idealized beauty, and she is no longer just a suffering admirer. You are two people, learning the shape and texture of each other's minds. You find she has a quick, dry wit that you never would have suspected from her public persona. You make her laugh. A soft, genuine sound that is more precious to you than any prize money. The ethics of this are, of course, murky, and historians still argue about the intended endgame of courtly love. Was it purely a platonic, spiritual adoration meant to ennoble the lover, or was it a ritualized, socially acceptable pathway to an actual affair? The literature of the time is deliberately ambiguous on this point. Poems and stories often celebrate the spiritual connection while hinting at a physical one, leaving the conclusion to the reader's imagination. Standing there in the quiet maze, you feel that ambiguity with every fiber of your being. The air between you is charged with unspoken feelings, with the tension of what is not being said. Every word has a double meaning. Every shared glance is a risk. You are closer to her than you have ever been, and yet she feels more unattainable than ever. The secret meeting is a success, but it has only deepened the complexity and the danger of your situation. You leave the maze in a daze, your mind replaying every word, every subtle shift in her expression. The meeting was a masterpiece of ambiguity. Nothing was explicitly said, yet everything was understood. You didn't confess your love, but you spoke of things that revealed your character. She didn't declare any affection, but she granted you the intimacy of her time and her thoughts. You are floating on a cloud of tentative joy. You now exist in a new phase of this strange courtship. The initial trials are over. You have, in a sense, graduated. Now begins a period of quiet, clandestine connection. The daily lavender delivery is no longer to an empty room. Sometimes, when you arrive, she is there, sitting by the window with her embroidery. She doesn't always speak to you. Often, she will just look up from her work, meet your eyes, and give you a small, slow nod of acknowledgement. It's a silent ritual that becomes the most important moment of your day. On rare occasions, she will ask you a simple question. Is it cold outside this morning? Or did the merchants arrive yet? The questions are mundane, but the subtext is profound. She is including you, however briefly, in the small details of her world. Then, about a week after the meeting in the maze, she gives you something. You arrive at the solar with the fresh lavender. She is standing by the mantelpiece, her back to you, seemingly examining the tapestry. You place the flowers in the vase as usual, preparing to leave in silence. "Squire," she says, her voice soft. She turns to face you. In her hand, she is holding a small object, the little falcon you carved. It is a fine piece of work. Your heart leaps. She is referring to your gift. "I did not carve it, my lady," you stammer, wanting to be honest. "I bought it from a tradesman." "No," she says, a faint smile on her lips. A gift given with such feeling is a work of the heart, not just the hands. It is yours to give. She takes a step closer. A knight who fights with courage and speaks with wisdom deserves a token of esteem. She holds out her hand. Resting on her palm is a small, leather-bound book. It's not new. The cover is worn smooth at the edges, and the leather ties are free. It's clearly a personal possession. "This is a book of poems," she says, "by the troubadours of the South. I find their words elegant. Perhaps you will too." You reach out, your hand trembling slightly, and take the book from her. Your fingers brush against hers for a fraction of a second. The contact is electric, a jolt of warmth that seems to travel all the way up your arm and settle in your chest. It's the first time you have ever touched her. You stand there, speechless, clutching the book. It's the most significant thing you have ever held. It's not just a book. It's a part of her. She has read these pages. Her fingers have touched this cover. It's an object imbued with her presence. "Thank you, my lady," you finally manage to say, your voice thick with emotion. "I will treasure it." She simply nods, then turns back to her needlework. The moment of intimacy concluded as quickly as it began. You back out of the room, your mind reeling. This act of her giving you a personal item is a huge step. I returned favor, or guerdon, was a critical part of the courtly love exchange. It was the lady's acknowledgement of the lover's service. These tokens could be anything: a glove, a ring, a lock of hair. The value was not in the object itself, but in its personal connection to the lady. It was tangible proof of her favor. A particularly strange and niche aspect of this was the belief that these objects retained a sort of magical quality of the beloved. The famous lover Lancelot, for instance, was said to worship a comb that still held strands of Queen Guinevere's hair. It sounds obsessive, and it was, but it was part of the romantic ideal that the lover's devotion was so intense. Even an inanimate object associated with his lady could become a source of strength and inspiration. You, clutching this small book of poems, understand that feeling perfectly. Later, alone in the barracks, you open the book. The parchment pages are thin and delicate. The script is elegant and precise. As you turn the pages, a small, pressed flower falls out from between them, a single, dried sprig of lavender. The message is unmistakable. She is linking this gift directly to your daily ritual, to the service you perform for her. But there's more. On the inside cover, in a faint, barely minus the script, a single word is written: patience. The meaning is clear. She is acknowledging your devotion, rewarding your service, but also counseling restraint. It's a word of encouragement and a word of warning, all at once. This is a long game. She is telling you, do not be hasty. Historians often debate the level of literacy among medieval noblewomen. While many were indeed highly educated, particularly those raised in convents, their reading was often directed towards religious texts. A woman like Isabel not only read secular poetry but also used the written word for such a subtle, powerful message. Would have been exceptionally sophisticated. Was this common, or was she an outlier? The evidence is sparse, leaving us to wonder just how many of these silent, written communications were being passed in the courts of Europe. For you, the book is a universe of meaning. It's a reward, a test, and a set of instructions. It is the most complex and wonderful gift you have ever received, and the single word inscribed within it becomes your new mantra. Patience. Patience. The word becomes your shield and your guide. You carry the small book of poetry with you everywhere, tucked inside your tunic. It's a constant, secret reminder of the connection you share with her. You read the poems at night by candlelight, trying to understand the complex emotions of the southern troubadours, recognizing your own feelings in their verses of longing and adoration. Your newfound confidence, however, brings with it a new and far more dangerous challenge interacting with her husband, the lord of the castle. A man you have thus far successfully avoided begins to notice you, your success in the tournament, your recovery from your illness, and your quiet competence have not gone unseen. To him, you are not a secret lover. You are a promising young man, a useful asset in his household. And so, he starts to give you tasks. This is a terrifying development. He'll stop you in the courtyard and ask you to deliver a message to the reeve. He'll have you assist the master minus horse in conditioning a new dust dryer. He is, in his own gruff way, showing you favor, and every time he speaks to you, you feel a cold dread creep up your spine. You are convinced that he can see your secret written all over your face. One evening, you are summoned to the great hall for a small, informal gathering. The lord is playing chess with his brother. Near the hearth, the Lady Isabel is there, sitting nearby, listening to a minstrel play a soft melody on the harp. A few other knights and ladies are present. It's an intimate scene, and your presence in it feels both like an honor and a trap. The lord beckons you over. "Squire," he says, not looking up from the chessboard, "pour us some more wine." Your heart pounds. You go to the side table, pick up the heavy jug, and approach the two men. Your hands are shaking slightly as you pour the dark red liquid into their silver goblets. You are acutely aware of the Lady Isabel, just a few feet away. You can feel her stillness, her quiet attention. As you pour, Guy looks up at you with his usual mocking smirk. He has steady hands for a poet, he says to his brother, a clear jibe at your known sensitivities. You flinch inwardly but keep your expression neutral. The lord, however, surprises you. "A man should know both the pen and the sword," he says, moving a castle piece across the board. "Too much of one makes you a brute. Too much of the other makes you, well, it makes you like the singers from Provence." He says it with a gruff dismissal, but it's a surprisingly philosophical statement. For a moment, you feel a strange sense of kinship with this powerful, intimidating man. Then, he looks directly at you. "My wife tells me you have a fondness for poetry." The blood drains from your face. She told him. Why would she tell him? Is it a test? A warning? A way of hiding your secret in plain sight? I enjoy the tales of chivalry. "My lord," you stammer, your voice barely a whisper. "Good," he says, turning his attention back to the game. A young man should have noble examples. And flattered, the moment passes. He is utterly oblivious. Or is he? This is one of the most intriguing and debated figures in the courtly love triangle, the cuckolded husband. In the romances, he is often portrayed as either a brutish, jealous tyrant or a complete buffoon, easily deceived by his wife and her lover. But the historical reality was likely far more complex. A powerful lord was not an idiot. He was a shrewd politician and a commander of men, skilled at reading people and sensing shifts in loyalty. So what did real minus-life husbands think of their wives being the object of some young knight's very public, very dramatic adoration? Some historians argue that they may have tolerated, or even encouraged it, up to a point. A wife who was celebrated as a paragon of beauty and virtue by the young men of the court only increased the husband's own prestige. It was a reflection of his good taste and power, as long as the love remained a respectful, non-minus physical, public performance of chivalry. It could be a positive thing for the household. It was a way of keeping the young, unmarried knights occupied and loyal. The danger, of course, was a line between performance and reality. A weirdly specific bit of etiquette from the era dictated that the lover must show extreme deference and loyalty to the lord. The love for the lady was supposed to make him a better vassal to her husband. It was a strange, psychologically complex justification. You must love the wife so purely that it makes you serve the husband with even greater fervor. It's a paradox that you are now living every single day. As you stand there, frozen by the side of the chessboard, you try to put this theory into practice. You focus on your duty. You refill the cups. You stand silently, at attention, ready for the next command. You project an aura of unwavering, humble service. You are the Lord's man, entirely devoted to his household. And all the while, You are intensely aware of her. She has not looked at you once. Her gaze is fixed on the harpist's hands. But you feel her presence like a physical force. She is the silent, unmoving center of this dangerous orbit. Her husband, her brother minus in minus law, and her secret admirer, all gathered around a game of strategy. Each move laden with a weight no one, but you and she can fully comprehend. The tension in the room is so thick you could cut it with a dagger, and you are standing right in the middle of it, trying not to tremble. In the small book of poems she gave you, you find solace and confusion in equal measure. The verses speak of a love that is all minus consuming, a service that is absolute, and a suffering that is noble. It's inspiring, but it's also frustratingly vague on the practicalities. How long is one supposed to pine? What are the precise rules of engagement? You feel like you're playing the most important game of your life without a complete rulebook. Then, you find one. Your education in the art of love takes a scholastic turn thanks to the castle's priest, Father Michel, H.C.S. a kindly, scholarly man who oversees the small library of manuscript kept in the chapel's scriptorium. Seeing your newfound interest in books, he takes a liking to you. One afternoon, while you are helping him sort through a stack of theological texts, he pulls out a thin, unassuming volume. Since you have a taste for the complexities of the heart, Squire, he says with a twinkle in his eye, you might find this illuminating, or perhaps confounding. The book is titled Diamar, or On Love. The author is listed as Andreas Capellanus, a name you don't recognize. You take the book back to your barracks and begin to read, and as you do, your world is turned upside down. This is it. This is the official, honest minus to minus goodness instruction manual for the very thing you are trying to do. Written in the late 12th century, Andreas Capellanus's The Art of Courtly Love is one of the most bizarre and influential texts of the Middle Ages. It's a dry, methodical, almost legalistic treatise on how to properly conduct a courtly love affair. The book is structured like a series of dialogues, where men of different social classes are commoner. The nobleman, a higher nobleman plead their case for love to women of corresponding classes. The women's responses are sharp, intelligent, and often dismissive. It's a guide to romantic rhetoric, but the truly astonishing part comes later. Capellanus lays out a series of rules of love. There are 30 minus one of them in total, and they read like a list of divine commandments for lovers. You lie on your straw pallet, utterly engrossed, the sounds of the barracks fading away. You read the rules, and you see your own experience reflected in them, codified in black and white. Rule 1: marriage is no real excuse for not loving. You read this and a jolt goes through you. The book states, unequivocally, that true love cannot exist between a husband and wife. It argues that jealousy, a key ingredient of love, cannot exist in a marriage where both parties are bound by duty. This is a radical, almost heretical idea, and it seems to give a strange kind of philosophical permission to your feelings for Isabel. Rule 13 when made public. Love rarely endures. This confirms everything you've learned about secrecy. The book is validating your caution, your fear of the gossips and the watching eyes. Rule 24: every act of a lover ends in the thought of his beloved. You nod to yourself. This is your life. From mucking out a stable to standing vigil in the hall, every action is somehow filtered through your thoughts of her. Some of the rules are, frankly, a bit weird. Rule 29: a true lover is constantly, and without intermission, possessed by the image of his beloved. This sounds exactly like the love sickness you just recovered from. The book is literally describing your symptoms. A fun, and slightly ridiculous, tidbit is that Capellanus also includes sections on how to stop loving someone, with suggestions like visiting a cattle market to see unattractive people, which will supposedly cure you of your obsession with beauty. As you read, you feel a sense of profound relief. You are not alone. The confusing, contradictory, and intense feelings you have are part of a recognized system. There are rules. There is a structure. What you are doing has a name and a history. But the book also presents a huge problem. In the final section, Capellanus does a complete 180-degree turn. After spending the entire book teaching the reader how to pursue courtly love, he suddenly and violently condemns it. He writes a rejection of love, in which he argues that love is a sin, that women are fickle and wicked, and that a wise man should avoid them at all costs and devote himself only to God. This final chapter is a source of endless debate for historians. What was he thinking? Was the entire book a complex satire? A parody of Ovid's Ars Amatoria designed to lure in the reader and then hit them with a moralizing sermon at the end? Was he a cleric who was genuinely fascinated by the topic, but felt obligated to add a pious retraction to avoid getting in trouble with the church? Or was he trying to show the internal conflict of the age, the tension between the new, romantic ideals of the court and the old, ascetic ideals of Christianity? You close the book, your mind buzzing. It has given you a framework, but it has also given you a deep sense of unease. Is this noble pursuit you've dedicated yourself to actually a path to sin and ruin? The book seems to say yes and no at the same time. It has clarified the rules of the game while simultaneously suggesting that the game itself is rigged, that you are destined to lose one way or another, either by failing to win her love, or by succeeding and damning your soul. You look over at the other book, the one she gave you, the book of poems from the South. Its message is one of pure, uncomplicated adoration. You now have two guides. One is a practical, cynical, and contradictory rulebook. The other is a heartfelt, artistic expression of the ideal. You are caught between the prose and the poetry, between the system and the feeling. Then you realize, with a sinking heart, that you will have to find your own way between them. Armed with the conflicting wisdom of Andreas Capellanus and the pure sentiment of the troubadours, you continue your delicate dance. The word patience is your guiding star. Your interactions with Lady Isabel are fleeting, precious, and always chaperoned by the silent presence of the solar or the rustling leaves of the garden. The relationship is sustained by shared glances, the brief exchange of a book, and the quiet understanding that passes between you in a crowded room. But you crave more. The brief, accidental brush of your fingers when she gave you the book has replayed in your mind 1,000 times. It was a spark in the dark, a hint of something more tangible than poetry and stolen moments. You begin to obsess over the idea of touch, not in a crude or demanding way, but as the next logical step in this profound emotional connection. This is, however, perhaps the most heavily guarded frontier of all. In a world where every gesture was freighted with meaning, physical contact was the most significant gesture of all. A kiss on the hand was a sign of vassalage, of respect. A kiss on the lips was a seal of a contract or a pledge of betrothal. Unsanctioned touching was a shocking breach of protocol. Your daily delivery of lavender becomes a study in proximity. You are learning the geography of her presence. You know how close you can stand before it feels intrusive. You are always conscious of the space between you, a gap of a few feet that feels as wide as an ocean. One morning, you enter the soul and she is not in her usual chair by the window. She is standing near the door, examining a small tear in the hem of her sleeve. As you move past her to place the lavender in its vase, your arm brushes against the velvet of her gown. It's a completely incidental contact, lasting less than a second, but it feels like a thunderclap. You freeze, expecting a rebuke, a cold look. You turn to apologize, but she doesn't seem to have noticed. Or rather, she is giving a masterclass in pretending not to have noticed. Her focus remains entirely on her sleeve, her expression serene. You murmur a clumsy apology anyway and practically flee the room, your heart hammering. This incident makes you realize the sheer complexity of physical interaction. You begin to notice the subtle ways other people in the court manage it. You see a husband place a hand on his wife's back to guide her through a crowd. You see a brother and sister link arms. These are sanctioned, public touches. But then you see the other kind. You see a knight presenting a cup to a lady. Let his fingers linger against hers for a heartbeat too long. You see a lady tap a courtier's arm with her fin in a gesture that is both playful and intimate. It's a whole new vocabulary you have to learn. A particularly strange and interesting bit of historical trivia revolves around the chaste kiss, or osculum, in some Bavarian religious orders. A formal, ritualized kiss between men was a sign of fellowship and peace. In the context of courtly love, the first kiss was a monumental step, often debated and agonized over in the poetry of the time. Would it be a kiss on the hand, the cheek, the lips? Each location had a different meaning, a different level of intimacy. You know you are nowhere near that stage. You're still at the level of Kneist, and next to her without spontaneously combusting. Your chance to explore this new frontier comes unexpectedly. The Lord announces a hawking party. The whole court will be riding out into the fields. You are tasked with assisting the master falconer, which means you will be part of the excursion. The day is bright and clear. The party rides out, a colorful procession of nobles on fine horses, with the hooded falcons perched on their gloved fists. Lady Isabel is a superb horsewoman, riding with an easy grace. You are on foot, helping with the less glamorous birds and the equipment, but it allows you to stay close to the main party. During a break, as the falconers prepare the birds for a flight, you see Lady Isabel dismount near a small stream. As she lands, her foot slips on a loose, mossy stone. She stumbles, letting out a small, surprised gasp. You react without thinking. You are closer to her than anyone else. Into quick strides, you are at her side. You reach out and grab her arm to steady her, your hand closing firmly around her forearm. "My lady," you say, your voice full of concern. "Are you all right?" She looks up at you, her eyes wide with surprise. You are holding her. Your hand is on her arm, your fingers pressing into the thick fabric of her riding dress. It's a firm, supportive, and entirely justifiable touch. It is an act of service, of protection, but it is also the most prolonged physical contact you have ever had with her. For a long moment, neither of you moves. The sounds of the hawking party, the jingle of harnesses, the calls of the falconers seem to fade away. There is only the solid warmth of her arm under your hand, the feeling of her balanced against you. Then she recovers her composure. "I am well," she says, her voice steady. "Thank you, Squire." The stone was slick. She gently withdraws her arm from your grasp. You step back, your duty done, but as you do, her fingers briefly, lightly, squeeze your hand. It's a tiny, sacred gesture, over in an instant. A gesture of thanks, perhaps, but it feels like so much more. It feels like an answer. It feels like permission. Historians often debate the physical dimension of courtly love. Some of the more extreme poetic descriptions involve the lover fainting at the sight of his lady, or being physically wounded by the arrows of love. While these are likely literary exaggerations, they point to a culture that was intensely aware of the body as a vessel for emotion. Was the love purely platonic and spiritual, as some scholars argue? Or was it, as others contend, a deeply sensual experience where every touch, no matter how small, was charged with an almost unbearable significance? As you stand by the stream, the ghost of her touch still tingling on your skin, you are certain of the answer. The brief pressure of her hand on yours becomes your new obsession, replacing the memory of your first accidental touch. It was intentional. It was a response. It was a shared secret in a public space. This small, fleeting gesture feels like a massive shift in the landscape of your relationship. It has moved you, ever so slightly, from the realm of pure, untouchable adoration into something more grounded, more human. And this new development forces you to confront a question you have been actively avoiding. What exactly are you hoping for? What is the ultimate goal of this elaborate, all-consuming courtship? You lie awake on your pallet, the familiar sounds of the snoring barracks around you, and you think, the poems she gave you speak of a love that ennobles the soul. The lover becomes a better man, a better knight, through his selfless devotion to his lady. His love is the fuel for his virtue. This is the official version, the one you would profess at a court of love. It's a pure, spiritual, almost religious devotion. The lady is a stand minus in for the Virgin Mary, an icon of perfection whose worship leads to salvation or at least to a better reputation at court. This is fine amour, or refined love, the term the troubadours themselves used. It's supposed to be about the yearning, not the having. The desire is what makes you noble, not the consummation of that desire. You tell yourself this is what you want. You want to be the perfect, selfless knight, content to worship from afar. Your love for Isabel making you a more honorable man, a more loyal servant to her husband. It's a beautiful, poetic idea. And you know, with a sinking feeling in your gut, that it's not entirely true, because you also remember the warmth of her arm, the jolt of her touch, the scent of her perfume in the solar. You remember the way she laughed in the maze. These are not the feelings one has for a distant, holy icon. These are the feelings one has for a woman of flesh and blood, a woman who is intelligent, witty, and beautiful, a woman whose husband is a gruff, frequently absent man twice her age. This is the great, central conflict of courtly love, the one that scholars and poets have wrestled with for centuries. What was the relationship between spiritual love and physical love? Was the whole elaborate ritual of courtly devotion just a sophisticated excuse, a poetic smokescreen for adultery? Some historians argue vehemently that it was. They see it as a pragmatic social outlet in a world of arranged marriages, where love and marriage were rarely connected. Courtly love, in this view, was a game with a very real, physical prize. The poems, the gifts, the secret meetings, they were all steps leading to a secret, consummated affair. Other scholars find this view too cynical. They argue that the spiritual and emotional connection was the primary point. The love was a powerful, transformative force in itself. While it might have occasionally tipped over into a physical relationship, that wasn't its purpose or its ideal form. It was about disciplining desire, not indulging it. A weird piece of trivia that supports this idea comes from Andreas Capellanus himself, who describes different stages of love, from simple hopeful glances all the way to a stage that includes everything. But he treats this final stage as almost a separate, this noble category. You are caught squarely in the middle of this historical debate. Your mind aspires to the purity of fine amour. You want to be the noble, suffering servant. But your body, your heart, yearns for something more. The conflict makes you feel deeply ashamed. Is your love impure? Are you less noble than the knights in the poems because you dream of more than just a shared glance? You think of the Lord, your host. He has shown you favor. He has, in his own way, been kind to you. The thought of betraying him fills you with a profound sense of guilt. And yet, the thought of spending the rest of your life in this state of perpetual, unfulfilled longing is a special kind of agony. This tension was the engine of countless medieval romances. The story of Lancelot and Guinevere is the ultimate example. Their love is portrayed as the most profound and beautiful in the world, the source of Lancelot's greatness as a knight. But it is also the sin that ultimately brings down the entire kingdom of Camelot. Their story is both a celebration and a cautionary tale. It seems to say that this kind of love is glorious, but it is also doomed. One afternoon, you are in the chapel, not praying, but simply seeking a moment of quiet to think. You are looking at a stained glass window depicting a saint looking piously up at heaven. Lady Isabel enters the chapel and kneels at the front, her head bowed in prayer. You are at the back, hidden in the shadows. You watch her, and the conflict within you rages. Is she your path to nobility or your path to damnation? Is this feeling in your chest a sacred fire or a sinful one? The culture you are living in, the very books you read, seem to give you two completely different answers. You look at her, a still, devout figure in the colored light of the window, and you have no idea if she is your saint or your siren. All you know is that you are completely, hopelessly devoted to her, and you are no closer to understanding where that devotion is supposed to lead. The internal debate between spiritual purity and earthly desire grinds away at you. You feel trapped between the poet and the priest, unsure which voice to follow. You pour all this anxious energy into your duties, becoming the most efficient, and hard-working squire in the castle. You are impeccably courteous to the law, fiercely loyal in your service, and painstakingly discreet in your brief, silent encounters with Isabel. You are the very model of a courtly lover, torn apart on the inside. You feel like you're in a stalemate, a perpetual state of hopeful waiting. Then, she breaks it. It happens during your morning ritual. You enter the solar with the lavender, and she is waiting for you, standing not by the window or the hearth, but in the center of the room. There is an unusual gravity in her expression, a sense of purpose. "Squire," she says, her voice low, "your service to this house has been noted. Your loyalty to my lord husband is commendable." The compliment, coming from her, is a double minus-edged sword. She is praising your loyalty to the very man you are deceiving. It makes your stomach clench with guilt. You simply bow your head, unable to speak. A servant of such quality deserves more than just words. She continues. She raises her hand, and in it, she is holding a pair of small, sharp silver scissors. There comes a point where trust must be demonstrated, not just filled. A bond must be sealed. You watch, completely mesmerized, as she lifts the scissors to her head. With a few deft snips, she cuts a thick lock of her own blonde hair. It lies in her palm, a shimmering coil of spun gold. Your breath catches in your throat. This is it. This is the ultimate favor. In the hierarchy of courtly love tokens, a lock of hair was the holy grail. It was the most personal, most intimate gift a lady could bestow. It was a part of her own body, a symbol of profound trust and affection. It was a gesture that went far beyond a handkerchief or a book. It was a definitive, undeniable statement. She steps forward and holds it out to you, so that you may carry a part of your lady's esteem with you always. She says, her voice a near whisper. Your hand is trembling so much you can barely keep it steady as you reach out to take it. The hair is soft and surprisingly heavy, still warm from her. You stand there, staring at the golden lock in your palm as if it's a burning coal. This is evidence. This is the kind of token that, if discovered, could not be explained away. A book could be a gift for a literate squire. A handkerchief could be a reward for a victorious joustor. But a lock of the lady's hair, there is only one interpretation for that. My lady, you whisper, your voice hoarse with emotion. I am not worthy. It is not for you to judge your worthiness, she replies, her gaze intense. It is for me to bestow my favor where I see fit. The exchange is fraught with a terrifying significance. This gift is both a supreme reward and a profound burden. It's a symbol of her trust in you, but it's also a test of your discretion. To accept it is to accept a new level of danger, a new weight of responsibility. One of the weirder, more extreme examples from the literature is, again, Lancelot. He is so devoted to Guinevere that he is said to have almost fainted with joy upon being given her comb, which still contained a few of her hairs. He treated it like a sacred relic. This might seem like a wild exaggeration, but it captures the immense symbolic power of such a gift. In an age before photography, a lock of hair was a tangible, physical representation of the beloved that a lover could keep with him. You carefully, reverently, wrap the lock of hair in a small square of clean linen, the same linen you once used to wrap the wooden falcon, and place it in a small leather pouch that you wear around your neck, hidden beneath your tunic. It rests against your skin, a constant, secret warmth. The implications of her action are still being debated by historians. When a lady gave a lock of her hair, was she signaling a move from the platonic to the physical? Was it an invitation to an actual affair? Or was it the pinnacle of the spiritual connection? A symbolic gesture of unity that was meant to replace, rather than invite, physical intimacy. The ambiguity is maddening. The literature is full of both interpretations. For some lovers, it was a prelude. For others, it was the climax of the relationship itself. You have no idea which one it is for you and Isabel. You only know that she has placed her reputation, and possibly her life, in your hands. The weight of that trust is immense. You leave the solar feeling not just exhilarated, but also terrified. The game has just been raised to its highest possible stakes. The golden lock of hair around your neck feels as heavy as a millstone. A precious, dangerous secret that you must now protect at all costs. The lock of hair around your neck is a constant, secret fire. It's a source of incredible joy and unbearable anxiety. You find yourself touching this small leather pouch through your tunic a dozen times a day, just to reassure yourself it's still there. This tangible piece of her, this ultimate token, makes everything feel more real, more serious, and infinitely more dangerous. You feel a profound, overwhelming need to reciprocate. She has given you the most precious gift she can offer. You must respond with a gesture of equal significance. But what can you, a lowly squire, possibly do to match a gift of such magnitude? You have no titles, no lands, no great wealth to offer. You have only your devotion. And so, you decide to offer that, in its purest, most distilled form. You will perform a vigil. The concept of a vigil was a deeply ingrained part of medieval life. A knight-minus aspirant would hold a vigil the night before his dubbing ceremony, spending the entire night in a chapel, praying and contemplating the solemn oaths he was about to take. It was a ritual of purification, dedication, and spiritual preparation. You decide to adapt this tradition for your own purposes. You will hold a lover's vigil. You won't be praying for military success or valoric virtue in the abstract. You will be dedicating your entire being, for one whole night, to the contemplation of your love for Isabel. It's a strange, deeply personal act of piety, replacing God with your lady as the object of devotion. This practice, while not an official church-sanctioned ritual, was a popular trope in courtly romances. A lover would spend the night awake, sometimes in a chapel, sometimes just staring at his lady's window, in an act of extreme ascetic devotion. It was the ultimate proof of his stamina, his focus, and the spiritual nature of his passion. It was suffering elevated to an art form. You choose a night when the moon is new and the sky is dark. After the castle has settled into silence, you slip out of the barracks and make your way to the small castle chapel. It's not the main chapel where the whole court attends mass, but a smaller, more intimate space reserved for the Lord's family. It's usually locked, but you inspected the latch earlier in the day and made sure it could be easily opened. The chapel is dark and silent, save for the faint scent of old incense and melting wax. A single votive candle flickers before the altar, casting long, dancing shadows on the stone walls. You don't approach the altar. Instead, you kneel on the cold stone floor in a dark corner, facing the direction of the tower where you know she is sleeping. You have one object with you, the small book of poems she gave you. You can treat it in the dark, but you hold it in your hands. It's worn leather, a comforting presence. You don't pray in the traditional sense. You don't recite Pater Nosteris or Ave Marias. Instead, you meditate. You focus your entire mind on her. You recall every detail of her face, the precise blue of her eyes, the way a stray piece of hair sometimes escapes her veil, the small, thoughtful smile she reserves for moments of quiet wit. You replay every conversation, every shared glance, every brief touch. You think about her kindness, her intelligence, her grace under pressure. You fill the entire space of your mind with the idea of her, pushing out all other thoughts of fear, ambition, or guilt. The hours scroll by. The cold of the stone floor seeps into your knees and back. Your body aches. Your eyelids grow heavy. Sleep, a sweet and tempting oblivion, tugs at the edges of your consciousness. But you resist. You shift your weight. You dig your fingernails into your palms. You stand up and pace silently in the darkness. This small suffering is the point. It is your offering. You are sacrificing your physical comfort to prove the strength of your spiritual devotion. The historical debate around this kind of behavior is fascinating. Were these literary tropes just hyperbole? Did young men really do this? Or was it a metaphor for the sleepless nights and obsessive thoughts caused by love sickness? Some scholars suggest that such acts, if they did happen, were a form of imitative piety. In an age of intense religious faith, people knew the language and practices of sainthood and martyrdom. Lovers may have borrowed from this religious playbook, framing their romantic passion in the familiar terms of sacred devotion and ascetic suffering. It was a way of elevating their earthly love to a higher, more spiritual plane. As the first, faint, gray light of dawn begins to filter through the narrow chapel window, you are utterly exhausted, but your mind is strangely clear. You feel purified, as if you've burned away all the petty, selfish parts of your desire, leaving only the pure, refined gold of your love. You have made your sacrifice. You have proven, to yourself and to the silent, sleeping castle, the totality of your commitment. You slip out of the chapel just as the first sounds of the castle stirring can be heard. You are tired, sore, and hungry, but you feel a sense of profound peace. You have no idea if she will ever know about your secret vigil. It's a message sent with no expectation of it being received. And that, you realize, is the very essence of fine amour. It is a service performed for its own sake, a testament to a love that asks for nothing in return. Your secret vigil leaves you feeling spiritually cleansed but physically drained. For the next couple of days, you move through your duties in a haze of virtuous exhaustion. You expect nothing to change, as your act of devotion was, by its very nature, invisible. But you have underestimated the eyes of the court, and the intuition of Allah finds you sharpening a sword in the armory, a task requiring focus you don't quite possess at the moment. She doesn't say a word, just places a small loaf of bread and a wedge of cheese on the bench beside you. My lady has noted your diligence, she says, her face impassive. She would not see her loyal servants neglect their own strength. She then leaves as silently as she arrived. You stare at the simple meal. How could she know? Did Allah see you leaving the chapel at dawn? Or is this just a coincidence? A simple act of kindness? With them, Yuri never saw. But it feels like an acknowledgement, a quiet approval of your unseen sacrifice. Your private act of worship has received a response from its deity. This newfound sense of spiritual alignment is about to be put to a very public and very humiliating test. A few days later, the Lord and Lady are hosting a number of visiting dignitaries. The great hall is once again full, though the atmosphere is more formal and less raucous than the first feast you attended. You are on duty, serving wine to the guests at the high table. It's a position of trust and visibility, another sign of your slow but steady rise in the household. You are standing behind the Lord's chair, holding a heavy silver pitcher, trying to be as unobtrusive as a piece of furniture. The Lady Isabel is seated a few chairs down, engaged in a polite conversation with a visiting bishop. She looks magnificent in a dark blue gown, the lock of hair you have hidden under your tunic an exact match. During a lull in the conversation, she turns her head slightly and catches your eye. Her expression is neutral, but there is a clear, unmistakable command in her gaze. She then looks down at her lap, where her small pet greyhound is sleeping, and then back at you. You don't understand. What is she asking? Does the dog need water? You begin to move towards the water pitcher, but a subtle shake of her head stops you. Her gaze is insistent. She looks at the dog, then at you, and then it dawns on you, with a wave of cold, horrified understanding. This is the ultimate test of obedience. It's a scenario straight out of the poems in the rulebook of Andreas Capellanus. The lady, to prove her lover's absolute submission, would command him to do something foolish, embarrassing, or even degrading in public. It was a test to see if his devotion to her was greater than his own pride and public image. She is not asking you to feed the dog. She is commanding you to abase yourself before it. Your mind reels. This is insane. You are in the middle of the high table, surrounded by the most powerful people in the region. To do anything out of the ordinary would be social suicide. The Lord's brother, is watching you with his usual hawk-like intensity. just waiting for you to make a mistake. You look at her again, pleading with your eyes. Surely you don't mean this. Her expression is unyielding. This is not a request. It's a command. It's the flip side of the coin of her favor. She has given you her trust, her intimacy, her very air. Now she demands a corresponding sacrifice your dignity. This is one of the most bizarre and, to modern minds, problematic aspects of courtly love. The idea of the lover's complete and unquestioning submission. The literature is filled with stories of knights performing absurd tasks for their lady's Lancelot. For example, deliberately loses a tournament because Queen never commands it. Another knight in a romance agrees to fight with his shield held upside down, a symbol of disgrace, simply because his lady wishes it. Historians debate the meaning of this. Was it a misogynistic fantasy, portraying women as capricious tyrants? Or was it a sophisticated exploration of power dynamics, where the socially powerless lady could exercise absolute authority over her powerful lover in the private sphere of their relationship? Was it a literal expectation, or a poetic metaphor for the lover's internal surrender? Standing behind the Lord's chair, you don't have time for scholarly debate. You have to make a choice. Disobey, and you prove that your pride is more important than her will, shattering the entire foundation of your relationship. Obey, and you risk looking like a complete and utter fool, potentially ruining the respectable reputation you've so carefully built. You remember the word from the book she gave you, patience, and you remember your vow in the chapel, total devotion. Taking a deep, silent breath, you make your move. You walk slowly and deliberately behind the high table. When you reach her chair, you pretend to stumble, as if you've tripped on an uneven floorboard. You lurch forward, catching yourself on the table, and in the process, you drop to one knee. The silver pitcher clatters, but you hold on to it. You are now on the floor, kneeling beside her chair, right next to the sleeping dog. It's a clumsy, awkward, but vaguely plausible accident. The dog stirs and lifts its head. You look at it. Then, with an act of will that takes every ounce of your courage, you lean forward and gently, reverently, kiss the top of the dog's head. You rise to your feet immediately, your face burning with humiliation. You bow deeply. My apologies, my lady, my lord. I am clumsy tonight. A dense silence falls over the table. The visiting bishop looks bewildered. Guy is staring at you with an expression of pure, triumphant malice. The Lord just grunts, annoyed at the disruption. But then you look at Isabel. For the first time, you see an undisguised emotion on her face. It's not triumph. It's not amusement. It's a look of profound, heart-minus stopping tenderness. In that moment, a new understanding passes between you. You have passed the test. You have proven that your loyalty to her is absolute, transcending even your own self minus respect. You have sacrificed your pride on the altar of her command, and she has seen it. The dog minus kissing incident becomes the stuff of legend. For days, it's the only thing anyone talks about. The whispers follow you everywhere, but now they are a cocktail of mockery and bewildered respect. Jean minus Luke thinks you've gone completely mad. You kissed a dog? On purpose? He asks, his face a perfect picture of disbelief. For a woman who still won't even let you hold her hand in public. You're hopeless. Guy and his cronies have a new nickname for you, the Hound Minus Kisser. They sneer it as you pass, but their insults lack any real venom. Your act was so bizarre, so outside the normal realm of social ambition, that they don't quite know what to make of it. You have, in a strange way, top-played them by refusing to play their game of pride and status. Your public humiliation has become a private triumph. In your brief, silent meetings in the solar, Isabella's eyes now hold a new warmth, a new depth of feeling. You have proven yourself in a way that jousting and poetry never could. You have demonstrated the kind of absolute, reckless devotion celebrated by the troubadours. You feel that you have finally, truly, earned her trust. But as your secret bond with the lady deepens, your relationship with the Lord begins to sour. Lord Guillaume, Her husband is not a fool. He may be gruff and preoccupied with the business of running his domain, but he is observant. He has tolerated your presence, even shown you favor, because you were a useful and seemingly loyal young man. But the currents of court gossip eventually reach even the high table, and the sheer strangeness of your recent behavior has clearly registered with him. He doesn't see a courtly lover performing a ritual of submission. He sees a young squire acting very, very strangely around his wife. The change is subtle at first. He stops giving you tasks. He no longer calls you over to pour his wine or listen to his plans. When he looks at you now, it's not with the dismissive approval of a master to a servant, but with a cold, calculating stillness. His gaze lingers on you in the great hall, in the courtyard, in the chapel. It's a heavy, oppressive scrutiny, and it makes your skin crawl. You feel his suspicion like a change in the weather. Do you see? If former atmosphere you had grown accustomed to has been replaced by a tense and watchful silence, every time you are in the same room as both Isabel and her husband, the air crackles with unspoken threat. You redouble your efforts to be the perfect squire, deferential, humble, and completely focused on your duties. You avoid looking at Isabel whenever he is present, keeping your eyes fixed on the floor, on your hands, on anything but her. This shift highlights the precarious reality behind the romantic fantasy. While the poems might celebrate the cruelest husband, the truth was that a jealous husband was an incredibly dangerous man. He held the power of life and death within his own castle walls. An accusation of adultery, even without proof, could be enough to ruin you. You could be exiled, imprisoned, or worse, and no one would question his right to do it. One evening, the Lord summons you to his private study, not the solar, Isabel's domain, but his own masculine space, filled with maps, weapons, and the smell of leather and wax. This is the heart of his power. To be called here, alone and at night, is deeply ominous. He is sitting at his heavy oak desk, cleaning a hunting dagger with an oiled cloth. He doesn't look at you as you enter. "Squire," he says, his voice flat, "you've been in my household for some time now." "Yes, my lord," you reply, your own voice tight. "You have served well," he continues, his eyes still on the gleaming blade. "But a young man of your talents should not languish in a provincial castle. There is more to the world than these stone walls." He looks up, and his eyes are as hard and cold as the steel in his hand. "I have written a letter to my cousin, the Baron of Montfort, near the borderlands. He is in need of men, good fighters. He has agreed to take you into his service." The blood drains from your face. It's not an offer. It's a command. He is banishing you. It's a chillingly clever move. He is not accusing you of anything. He is not punishing you. He is promoting you. He is sending you away under the guise of an opportunity, a reward for your good service. To refuse would be an act of gross insubordination and would confirm all his suspicions. He has trapped you perfectly. This tactic, excelling a suspected rival under the pretense of a career advancement, is a footnote in many historical accounts. The quiet, non-violent method of dealing with a delicate problem. It was a way for a powerful man to remove a threat without causing a public scandal, which might tarnish his own wife's reputation and, by extension, his own honor. "The Baron of Montfort," you stammer. "That is a great honor." "My lord." "Indeed," the Lord says, a faint, cruel smile playing on his lips. "You will be fighting rebellious border clans. A chance for real glory. Far more satisfying than kissing dogs." The final words are spoken with a quiet, deliberate venom. He knows. He may not know everything about the poems, the handkerchief, the lock of hair, but he knows enough. He knows the core truth of it. He has seen the looks, heard the whispers, and put the pieces together. The game is over. He has won. "You will leave at dawn," he says, turning his attention back to his dagger. "A horse and provisions will be made ready for you." You bow, your body feeling numb, and back out of the room. You have been checkmated. You are being sent away. and there is nothing you can do about it. You won't even have a chance to say goodbye. The intricate, beautiful, and dangerous world you have built with Isabel is about to be shattered. The walk from the Lord's study back to the barracks is the longest of your life. Every step feels heavy, final. The casual noises of the castle settling in for the night, a distant laugh, the clatter of a pot in the kitchen, the snoring of a guard all sound like a farewell. Your grand, poetic love affair has ended with a quiet, political execution. You are in exile. You lie on your pallet, fully clothed, staring into the darkness. Sleep is impossible. Your mind is a whirlwind of panic and despair. To leave at dawn means you will never see her again. There will be no final, clandestine meeting in the maze. No last, lingering glance in the solar. The story will just stop. All the rules of courtly life, all the poems and songs, they have no chapter for this. They don't tell you what to do when the Lord, in his quiet, brutal wisdom, simply removes you from the board. The hours pass in a black, silent agony. You think of the lock of hair in the pouch around your neck. It feels less like a treasure now and more like a brand, a permanent reminder of what you have lost. Just as the sky is beginning to pale with the first hint of pre-minus dawn gray, you hear a faint scratching at the barracks door. Your heart leaps. You slip out of your cot, moving silently past the sleeping forms of the other squires. It's Alice. She is cloaked, her face barely visible in the gloom. She presses a small, heavy purse into your hand. For the road, she whispers, her voice urgent, from my lady. She says the borderlands are cold, and a good cloak is expensive. Then she presses a folded piece of parchment into your other hand. And this, she asks that you read it only when you are far from here. And then she is gone, melting back into the shadows of the castle. You are left standing there, your mind reeling, clutching the coin and the letter. She knew. Of course she knew. Alice must have overheard, or the Lord must have told her, and in the few short hours she had, she prepared this farewell for you. An hour later, as the sun begins to rise, you are in the courtyard, just as the Lord commanded. A sturdy horse, saddled and packed with provisions, is waiting for you. The stable master, the man you have worked with every day, gives you a sympathetic look but says nothing. The silence of the court is deafening. No one is here to see you off. Your departure is meant to be quiet, unremarked upon. Penny Rosor. You mount the horse, your movements stiffened automatic. You don't look up at the window of the solar. You can't bear it. You turn the horse and ride out at the castle gate. The same gate you entered with such naive ambition what feels like a lifetime ago. You don't look back. You ride for hours, putting as much distance as possible between you and the castle. The sun is high in the sky when you finally stop by a stream to water your horse. You sit on the bank, the sounds of the forest around you, and you finally pull out the parchment she gave you. Your hands are shaking as you unfold it. It's not a letter. It's a poem. It is written in her elegant, precise script. It's a type of poem known as an alba, or a dansson. This was a specific and popular genre in courtly love literature. An alba is a poem about two lovers who have spent a secret night together and are now lamenting the coming of the dawn, which will force them to part. A watchman, a friend, is often a character in the poem, whose job it is to cry out, "The dawn, the rise." Her poem is a beautiful, heartbreaking example of the form. It speaks of a night of shared souls, of a brief eternity of understanding. It doesn't describe any physical intimacy, but a profound meeting of spirits, and it ends with the watchman's cry, the cruel arrival of the sun, and the pain of the forced separation. The sun now climbs the eastern hill. The watchman's horn is sharp and shrill. My heart, my friend, my love, my night, flee from the coming of the light. Reading it, you understand her message completely. She is giving you a way to reframe your departure. You are not being banished in disgrace. You are the lover in the alba, forced to flee at dawn. She has taken the ugly, political reality of your exile and transformed it into a beautiful, poignant, Romantic trope. She has given you a better story. The historical significance of the Alba is fascinating to scholars. While most courtly poetry focuses on the longing and pursuit, the Alba is one of the few genres that deals with the after. It lives in the moment of separation. Some historians see the Alba as the strongest literary evidence that these affairs were indeed physical, as the poems are explicitly about lovers parting after a night together. Others argue that, like Isabel's poem, the night together could be a metaphor for a spiritual or emotional communion, and the dawn is simply the symbol of the harsh reality of the world intruding on their private sanctuary. Clutching the bone, you feel a profound sense of gratitude mixed with your sorrow. She has given you one last gift, the gift of a noble ending. Your love story will not conclude with a quiet, humiliating dismissal. It will end like the songs of the great troubadours, with a beautiful, tragic dawn. The pain of leaving is still immense, but she has cloaked it in the dignity of art. You fold the parchment carefully and place it in the pouch with her hair. It is your story. And now, you must ride on, into the cold reality of the borderlands. The borderlands are as harsh and unforgiving as the Lord had promised. Life at Baron Montfort's outpost is stripped of all poetry and romance. It is a world of cold winds, rough men, and the constant, low-grade fear of a skirmish. You trade your courtly tunic for a practical leather jerkin. Your days are spent on patrol, mending fortifications, and sparring in muddy courtyards. There are no secret glances here, no lavender scented solares, no debates on the nature of love. There is only the grim business of survival. And, to your own surprise, you are good at it. The focus and discipline you cultivated during your obsessive courtship now serve you well in this new, violent context. The patience you learned while waiting for a sign from her becomes the patience needed to stand watch on a cold, rainy night. The courage it took to kiss a dog in a hall full of nobles becomes the courage to charge into a skirmish. You fight well. You are quiet, diligent, and brave. You earn the respect of the other soldiers, not through wit or charm, but through competence. In the long, quiet nights, you take out the small pouch. You unwrap the lock of golden hair, letting it catch the firelight. You read the alba she wrote for you, your own private scripture. These relics are all you have left of that other life. And as the months turn into a year, a strange question begins to form in your mind. Was any of it real? You don't mean real in the sense of did it happen. You were there. You have the scars from the tournament and the poem in your hand to prove it. You mean real in the sense of what did it all mean? From the start, pragmatic vantage point of the borderlands, the elaborate rituals of the court now seem theatrical, a bit absurd. You remember the high-minded ideals of fine amour, the idea that love was a spiritual force for self-improvement. And it was true. In a way, your devotion to Isabel did make you a better man. It forced you to be braver, more articulate, more patient. It was a crucible that forged you into the capable man you are today. But you also begin to question the object of that devotion. Was it really Isabel, the person? Or was it the idea of Isabel, the beautiful, unattainable, high-born lady, the perfect muse? Was she just a role, a part she played with masterful skill? And were you just playing a role in return the suffering squire, the devoted knight? This is a deep, cynical question that historians often ask. Was courtly love a genuine emotional experience? Or was it a sophisticated form of social performance? An ambitious young man at court needed a patron. A high-born lady, often sidelined by the patriarchal power structure, needed a sphere of influence. By entering into a courtly romance, the young man could win the lady's favor, which could translate into real career advancement. The lady, in turn, could build a coterie of loyal, devoted young men, increasing her own power and prestige within the court. From this perspective, the whole thing looks less like a romance and more like a very elegant networking strategy. The love was a kind of social theater, a stylized performance where everyone knew their lines. The goal wasn't necessarily a secret affair, but mutual social and political benefit. all cloaked in the beautiful, fashionable language of poetry and chivalry. A weirdly compelling piece of evidence for this more cynical view is the sheer public nature of so many of the secret acts. You fought for her in a tournament. You abased yourself before her at a feast. These were public declarations. Was the point to communicate your love to her, or to communicate your status as a lover to the rest of the court, thereby raising your own social standing? Sitting by a fire on the cold frontier, you are forced to re-examine every memory. The first glance, was it a spark of connection, or the opening move at a game, the handkerchief at the tournament a secret favor, or a calculated public gesture to see how you would perform? Even the lock of hair, was it a gift of profound intimacy, or the ultimate reward for a loyal retainer, a way of binding you to her service forever? You feel a wave of disillusionment wash over you. It's a bitter, painful thought. The idea that the most profound experience of your life might have been just a beautifully orchestrated play. You think of Isabella's perfect composure, her mastery of every situation, her ability to communicate so much without ever saying anything explicit. Was that the caution of a woman in a dangerous position, or the skill of an expert performer? You have no way of knowing. The ambiguity that was once so thrilling and romantic now feels like a source of doubt. You are caught between two interpretations of your own past. In one version, you are the hero of a tragic romance, a true lover separated from his soulmate. In the other, you are a slightly clueless young man who played his part well in a complex social game and was rewarded with a promotion and a gentle, face-saving exile when the game was over. The truth, you suspect, lies somewhere in the murky space between the two. It was probably both. It was a real, powerful emotion, but an emotion that could only be expressed and understood through the rigid, performative framework of the court. It was a game, yes, but a game played with real hearts. This realization doesn't diminish the pain of our absence, but it changes its texture. It's no longer just the sorrow of a lost love. It's the melancholy of a lost innocence, the sad wisdom that comes from understanding that even the most beautiful things in life are rarely as simple as they seem. Years pass. The borderlands become your home. The undisciplined squire from a minor lord's estate is gone, replaced by a seasoned knight. You earned your spurs not in a glittering tournament for a lady's favor, but in a bloody, desperate skirmish on a forgotten hillside, defending Baron Montfort's palace. You are so your name now, a title you earned with your own sweat and skill. You have your own men, your own small plot of land granted to you by a grateful baron. You are, by all accounts, a success. You are respected, you are competent, and you are profoundly lonely. You never marry. Several advantageous matches are suggested to you, the daughters of local landowners, alliances that would secure your position and your future, but you always find a reason to refuse. Your heart, do you realize, is a locked room, and the only key was lost long ago in a castle you can never return to. Your devotion to Isabel has transformed from an active, all-consuming passion into a quiet, permanent feature of your inner landscape. It's like a dull ache from an old wound, a pain you've grown so accustomed to that you barely notice it most days, but it's always there. You no longer take out the lock of hair every night. The pouch remains closed, a sacred, untouched thing. The alba, however, you have long since memorized. Its words come to you sometimes on the wind, a ghostly echo of a life that feels like it belonged to someone else. In your more pragmatic moments, you understand that your love affair was always doomed. This is the final, unspoken rule of courtly love, the one that Andreas Capellanus never wrote down. It has no future. The entire system was built upon the foundation of its own impossibility. The lady was, by definition, unattainable. She was married. She was of a higher class. She was an idealized object. The love was meant to exist in a state of perpetual, noble yearning, to actually succeed in any conventional sense, to run away together. To hope for the husband's death so you could marry was to misunderstand the point of the game entirely. That wasn't romance. That was just a messy, scandalous affair. Courtly love was a beautiful, hermetically sealed fantasy. It was a private world created by two people that ran parallel to the real world of marriage, politics, and inheritance, and it could only survive as long as it never tried to cross over. The moment a lover tried to make the fantasy real, the whole structure would collapse. Your banishment was, in a way, the system's self-preservation mechanism at work. The fantasy had grown too intense, too close to threatening the real world of the Lord's marriage and honor, and so it had to be terminated. This inherent hopelessness is a theme that runs through almost all courtly love literature. The most famous love stories, Tristan and Isolde, Lancelot and Guinevere, are all tragedies. Their love is glorious, yes, but it inevitably leads to ruin, exile, and death. There are no happy endings in the grand tales of courtly love. The very perfection of the love makes it incompatible with the imperfect, practical world. A strange but telling detail is how these stories often end. The lovers are frequently buried side by side, or a tree is said to grow from one graven arch over to touch the other. It's a symbolic union in death that was denied to them in life. This was the only happily ever after that the logic of courtly love would permit. You, thankfully, have not met such a tragic end. You have been given a life of quiet honor, but you feel like a ghost haunting your own existence. One day, a young, eager squire in your own service begins sighing dramatically and writing terrible poetry. You learn he is in love with a visiting merchant, young and very married. Wait, he looks at her with the same moon-eyed, desperate adoration that you remember feeling. You should give him advice. You should warn him. You should tell him that it's a beautiful, pointless game that will only lead to heartache. You should explain that the rules are designed to make him lose. But you say nothing. You just watch him. And for the first time in years, you feel a flicker of something other than melancholy. You see his youthful, foolish, all-consuming passion, and you feel a pang of envy. He is alive in a way that you are not. He is still in the first act of the play, and for all its inevitable sorrow, it is a beautiful part to play. You realize then that the purpose of courtly love was never to find a happy ending. The purpose was the journey itself, the secret glances, the hidden poems, the tests of faith, the moments of despair and exhilaration. That was the whole point. It was a way of experiencing the entire spectrum of human emotion in a heightened, concentrated, and beautiful form. It was a way to feel intensely alive in a world that was oft ungrim and prescribed. You lost, by the world's standards. You were exiled, and you will never see her again. But as you watch your squire make the same beautiful mistakes you once did, you realize that for a brief, shining period in your youth, you didn't just live. You existed inside a poem. And perhaps that is a kind of victory after all. Decades have passed. The world has changed. And so have you. Your hair is now more silver than brown, and the lines on your face tell the story of countless borderland winters. You are no longer the lean, fierce knight of your middle years, but a respected old man, the grizzled veteran who advises the new, young Baron of Montfort. The fire of your youth has mellowed to a warm, steady coal. One day, a messenger arrives from the south. He brings news from the lands you once called home. The old lord, Guillaume, has passed away. He died peacefully in his sleep, an old man full of years and honors. The messenger, a garrulous fellow eager for a hot meal, shares all the court gossip. The lord's brother, Duai, the one with the cruel eyes, died years ago from a fever brought on by too much wine. The castle has passed to Guillaume's eldest son, a man you barely remember as a small boy. And the Lady Isabel? She is still there, the dowager lady of the castle. She lives quietly in the solar, the messenger says, a serene and respected matriarch. She never remarried. The news stirs something deep within you, a feeling you thought had long since turned to dust. The lock of hair, the alba, they are no longer just memories of a youthful folly. They are relics of a living person. She is still there. The world that you thought had vanished completely still exists, 100 leagues to the south. An idea, a foolish, reckless, and utterly compelling idea, takes root in your mind. You must see her one more time. It makes no sense. You are an old man. She is an old woman. The passionate young lovers of the poems are long gone. What would you even say to each other? What would be the point? It is a sentimental, irrational impulse, and you know you should ignore it. But the pull is too strong. You feel like a pilgrim, drawn to a holy site at the end of his life. You make your excuses to the Baron. You tell him you wish to visit the grave of your father before you die. It's a plausible lie. He grants you leave, and you set off on your journey south, not as an exiled squire, but as a knight of renown, traveling at his own leisure. The journey is a strange pilgrimage into your own past. The landscape grows softer, greener, more familiar. With every league you travel, you feel like you are shedding the years, the hard shell of the border night falling away to reveal the young man who still lies beside you. When you finally see the towers of the castle in the distance, your heart, that old, tired muscle, gives a familiar, painful lurch. It looks exactly the same, as if frozen in time. You arrive not as a humble petitioner, but as a guest of some note. You are Sir Your Name, the famed veteran of the border wars. Your reputation precedes you. The young lord, Isabel's son, greets you with honor. He has heard the stories of your service to his father's cousin. You are given a fine room, treated as a respected peer. It is a strange and ironic homecoming. You walk the halls of the castle, a ghost in your own memories. You see the great hall where you first laid eyes on her. You see the garden where you hid your first poem. You see the tilting grounds where you fought for her favor. The whole castle is a museum of your long-minded lost love. You ask the young lord if you might pay your respects to his mother. He agrees readily, pleased by your courtly manners. He leads you to the solar, the same door. Your heart is pounding so hard you fear it might fail you. He opens the door, and you step inside. She is there, sitting in a carved chair by the window, a book resting in her lap. Her hair is as white as snow, braided and coiled in the same elegant style you remember. The face is lined with the fine wrinkles of age, but the bone structure is the same, the posture just as regal, and her eyes, when she looks up at you, are the same clear, intelligent blue. She looks at you, and you at her. The young lord introduces you, but you barely hear his words. A flicker of recognition, a shock, passes through her eyes, but it is gone in an instant, replaced by her customary serene composure. "Sir Knight," she says, her voice thinner than you remember, but just as calm. "It is an honor to welcome such a renowned warrior to our home." And in that moment, across the expanse of a lifetime, you are playing the game again. You are the distinguished visitor. She is the gracious lady. The secret between you is a silent, invisible presence in the room, as real and as unspoken as it was 50 years ago. The conversation is polite, formal, full of meaningless pleasantries. You talk of the border wars. She asks about your journey. Her son beams, proud of his mother's grace and his guest's fame. To him, this is just a meeting between two respectable old people. He has no idea that he is witnessing the final, closing scene of one of the great, untold love stories of his time. A fascinating debate among historians is what happened to courtly lovers when they grew old. The literature, focused on youthful passion, is almost entirely silent on the matter. Did the feelings fade? Did the relationships evolve into comfortable friendships? Or did the memory of that intense, youthful love remain a powerful force even into old age? There are very few sources to tell us. Your strange, bittersweet reunion is an event that history rarely, if ever, recorded. As you prepare to take your leave, your eyes meet hers one last time, and in that final, silent gaze, you see it all. You see the memory of the young girl who received a poem in a rose bush, the lady who dropped a handkerchief, the woman who gave you a lock of her hair and a poem about the dawn. And she, in turn, seems to see the ghost of the boy you were the loveless esquire, the clumsy poet, the knight who kissed a dog for her. Nothing is said. Nothing needs to be said. The entire story is there. In that one final, shared look, and you finally understand. The love wasn't a game, and it wasn't just a spiritual ideal. It was a bond so strong it has transcended time, distance, and even life itself. It is the one true and constant thing in your eventful life. You leave the solar with a profound sense of peace. The anxious, questioning part of you is finally silent. The journey that began in this castle half a century ago has found its conclusion, not in a passionate embrace or a tearful confession, but in a quiet, shared moment of recognition. It is a more fitting, more truthful ending than any poem could have devised. You spend a few more days at the castle, treated with all the honor due to your station. You walk the grounds, no longer a ghost haunted by the past, but a man taking a final, fond look at the place that shaped him. You find the small, western gate to the Yew maze. The latch, you notice with a wry smile, is still a bit loose. Some things, it seems, never change. On your last evening, as you are sitting in the great hall, watching the next generation of squires and ladies play their own intricate games of glances and whispers, a page approaches you. It's a young boy in the service of the Dowager Lady Isabel. He hands you a small, sealed package. "From my lady," he says, bows, and scurries away. Your hands tremble slightly as you break the wax seal. It is not a letter. Inside the wrapping is a small, familiar object, carved from pale linden wood. It's the little falcon, its wings slightly spread, the same one you gave her all those years ago. It has been kept, perfectly preserved, for a lifetime. Tucked beneath it is a single, pressed sprig of lavender. There is no note, no explanation, none is needed. It is a final, perfect act of communication in the silent language you have always shared. It is a return of your first gift, a closing of the circle. It says, "I remember everything. It was real. Go in peace." This gesture encapsulates the very essence of the courtly love ideal, its reliance on symbols, its depth of feeling communicated through objects, and its profound, lifelong loyalty. This is what the poets were trying to describe, not just the fleeting passion of youth, but all of that endures, that remembers, and that honors its own history. The next morning, you ride away from the castle for the last time. As you reach the crest of the hill where you can take your final look back, you don't feel the sharp pang of sorrow you felt as a young man. Instead, you feel a quiet, melancholy gratitude. You have been given a rare gift, the chance to read the last page of your own story. You finally understand what courtly love truly was. It was not just a literary trope or a social strategy. It was not simply a set of awkward rules or a path to a secret affair. It was a way of making life into art. It was a discipline for intensifying experience, for finding the profound in the mundane, the sacred in the forbidden. It was a way of loving that demanded everything from you: your courage, your intellect, your patience, your pride, and in return, it gave you a story worth living. A funny, final historical thought: the decline of courtly love is often linked to the rise of new ideas about romantic love within marriage, the very thing Andreas Capellanus claimed was impossible. Over the centuries, the idea that one could, and should, love one's spouse took hold, and the need for this elaborate, extra-minus marital system slowly faded, but its legacy, the idea of a deep, personal, transformative love, never went away. It simply changed its address. You ride north, back to your home in the borderlands. You know you will not see her again in this life, but you are no longer lonely. You carry her memory with you, not as a burden nor a source of pain, but as a treasured companion. You have the lock of hair, the alba, then now, the small wooden falcon. You are the sole keeper of the relics of a secret, to minus person religion. You live out the rest of your days in peace, a quiet, respected old knight with a secret smile and a story that no one else in the world will ever know. You were the suffering squire, the dedicated knight, the lover who fled at dawn, You played the game. You learned its rules. And in the end, you found that its greatest prize was not winning the lady, but the memory of having loved her so completely. The fire in your hearth crackles softly, its light casting a warm, gentle glow across the room. The wind, which has been howling around the stone walls of your small keep, seems to be quieting now, settling into a low, sleepy murmur. The memories of the castle, of Isabel, of the boy you once were, they no longer feel sharp and painful. They have softened with time, their edges blurred, like a well-read page in a beloved book. They drift through your mind not as a story of loss, but as a quiet, constant presence, a gentle hum beneath the surface of your thoughts. You can feel the weight of a long life lived, the satisfaction of duties done, of honor kept. The air is still and peaceful. You can almost smell the faint, ghostly scent of lavender in the cool night air. The world outside, with its borders and its battles, feels very far away now. Here, in the quiet of your own mind, there is only a sense of completion, of a circle finally, gracefully, closed. You are tired, but it is a good kind of tired. The deep, earned weariness that comes at the end of a long and meaningful day, or a long and meaningful life. Your breathing slows, becoming deep and regular, matching the steady, rhythmic pulse of the embers in the hearth.